An execution field is supposed to stay quiet after the condemned are dead. This one starts breathing. Black soil heaves beneath hundreds of armored corpses. Broken spears rattle against stone. The ash covering the valley lifts in thin spirals, even though there is absolutely no wind. And standing at the center of it all is a 17-year-old boy holding a class certificate everyone in the kingdom considers worthless. Meet Rowan Vale, the newly awakened necromancer whose official classification is so embarrassingly low that the royal registry does not even bother giving it a proper description. Necromancer, Class F, that is all the certificate says. 3 hours earlier, Rowan is standing inside the Hall of Ascension with several hundred other candidates while silver-class tablets float above the ceremonial floor. Every young citizen of the Ardent Dominion awakens a profession at 17. Warriors become soldiers. Mages enter the towers. Priests receive temple sponsorships. Even farmers can awaken specialized classes valuable enough to guarantee a comfortable life. Rowan expects nothing spectacular. Then the crystal touches his palm. It cracks. Not dramatically. Just one thin black fracture running through its center. The examiner frowns and checks the result twice. Necromancer, Class F. The hall immediately fills with uncomfortable whispers. Necromancy itself is not illegal. Modern necromancers work as battlefield cleaners, forensic specialists, and occasionally low-level dungeon support. The problem is the rank. Class F sits beneath every recognized combat grade. Even beginner skeletons summoned by F-class necromancers usually fall apart after a few minutes. The examiner hands Rowan his certificate with the expression of a man returning damaged merchandise. No grand humiliation follows. No crowd erupts into theatrical laughter. Most candidates simply lose interest, and somehow, that feels colder. One moment, Rowan is another potential adventurer. The next, he is administrative background noise. Only one person keeps watching. Across the hall stands Mira Solen, a quiet girl who awakened the rare Grave Sentinel class moments earlier. She notices something the examiners miss. The fractured crystal is not leaking mana, it is absorbing it. By the time Rowan removes his hand, every glowing rune around the testing pedestal has dimmed. Rowan notices too. He says nothing. Our necromancer has always been good at that. Outside the hall, newly awakened candidates gather around recruitment booths while officials shout offers for promising classes. Rowan receives exactly 0, so he walks past them. At the bottom of his certificate is a mandatory assignment for unsupported awakeners: 3 days of supervised field labor at the Grey March battlefield. Perfect. If the kingdom thinks his class belongs around corpses, Rowan sees no reason to argue. The Grey March lies beyond the eastern wall, where the Dominion fought the Varkesian legions nearly 30 years ago. Thousands died there. Most bodies were recovered. Rowan arrives near sunset with a shovel, a cheap mana lantern, and instructions to help identify old remains uncovered by recent rain. The supervisor barely looks at him before pointing toward the northern trench. That is when Rowan hears it. Not a voice. Not exactly. Something scratches behind his awareness. His class interface has remained blank since the awakening ceremony, displaying only 2 words. Necromancer F. Now, another line slowly appears. First seal. Intact. Rowan stops walking. The message disappears. Interesting. He reaches the northern trench and finds 3 skeletons partially exposed beneath wet earth. Standard necromancy requires a corpse, mana, a summoning formula, and enough spiritual control to stabilize whatever answers. Rowan has never practiced any of those things. He crouches anyway. His fingers touch the soil. Rise. Nothing happens for half a second. Then the entire trench drops, not collapses. Drops. The ground sinks several inches as if something enormous underneath it has inhaled. Rowan jerks his hand back. A skeletal arm punches through the mud. Then another. Then 20. Then 50. Our boy does not celebrate. He immediately steps backward and starts counting. The dead continue emerging. Soldiers, horses. Fragments of creatures that definitely are not human. Several skeletons still carry rusted weapons fused to their fingers. Rowan summoned 3 corpses. The ground gives him 87, and every single skull turns toward him at the same time. The mana lantern dies. A pulse spreads through the battlefield. Grass within several yards turns gray. Beetles crawl from the soil, twitch once, and stop moving. Rowan finally understands that something is catastrophically wrong with the letter printed on his certificate. An ordinary F-class summon cannot do this. Actually, an ordinary A-class summon cannot do this. The interface behind his eyes stirs again. First seal integrity, 99.9%. The number is not written as a warning. That somehow makes it worse. Rowan orders the undead back underground. 87 skeletons obey instantly. No resistance. No mana struggle. No complicated control commands. They simply descend. The earth closes over them. But the dead grass remains, so does the silence. Not a cricket makes noise within the affected ground. Rowan kneels and presses 2 fingers against the soil. Cold. Not winter cold. Empty cold. As though the area has forgotten how to support life. Our necromancer takes out the small notebook supplied to field workers and marks the radius of the effect. He does not write the word power, he writes cost. Because power without knowing the cost is just a fancy way to die early. Over the next 2 days, Rowan experiments carefully, very carefully. 1 finger bone, 1 dead rat, a bird carcass. Each summon produces the same impossible pattern. The summoned creature rises perfectly. No visible mana leaves Rowan. The surrounding earth loses a tiny amount of vitality instead. The larger the corpse, the wider the affected area. More importantly, the dead do not behave like ordinary summons. A standard necromancer puppets remains through mana threads. Rowan feels no threads. These creatures simply recognize him. On the 3rd experiment, he places a rusted dagger 10 feet away from the rat skeleton. He gives no verbal command. He only focuses on the weapon. The tiny undead creature walks over, grips the dagger with both paws, and drags it toward him. Rowan watches without blinking. Independent interpretation. That changes everything. Then, something stranger happens. The rat scratches a symbol into the dirt. A circle. 3 vertical lines. And a broken crown. Rowan has never seen it before. But somewhere beneath his class interface, something reacts. A sharp ache cuts across his chest. The first seal trembles. For 1 second, Rowan sees something that is not the Grey March. A stone chamber, black chains thicker than castle pillars. 9 enormous doors arranged in a circle. 8 are completely dark. The first is covered in fractures. Behind it, something moves. Then the vision disappears. Rowan is back in the trench. The rat skeleton has collapsed. The symbol remains. He copies it into his notebook. No conclusions. Not yet. That evening, Mira Solen arrives at the Grey March with a patrol unit. Her Grave Sentinel class lets her detect disturbances in burial grounds, and apparently the Eastern Watchtower has been reporting strange fluctuations for 2 days. She finds Rowan carrying a crate of recovered military tags. Her gaze immediately shifts toward the northern trench. Something was summoned here. Rowan sets down the crate. People summon things on battlefields. Not like this. Mira crouches beside a patch of gray grass. Her gauntlet emits a faint blue glow. The glow disappears the moment it touches the soil. She pulls her hand back. For the first time, her calm expression changes. This ground is dead. Rowan looks at the patch. It was already a battlefield. She gives him a flat stare. Not impressed. Fair enough. Mira asks whether he noticed anything unusual. Rowan tells her the truth. Yeah. She waits. The weather is terrible. That earns him an even colder stare. Our guy clearly has excellent survival instincts and absolutely terrible social ones. Before Mira can question him again, a horn sounds from the southern ridge. Once, twice, then 3 times. Emergency signal. The patrol moves immediately. A burial mound has collapsed near the old fortress road, exposing an underground chamber sealed since the war. And something inside is awake. The first creature crawls out before the soldiers reach the site. It resembles a man until it stands upright. Then everyone sees the extra joints. 4 arms. A rib cage opening outward like teeth. Old Varkeshan armor has grown directly into its bones. A grave eater. Normally, these things form when battlefield mana festers inside unburied corpses for decades. 1 is dangerous. 5 emerge. The patrol captain orders formation. Mira draws a narrow silver blade and steps forward. Rowan stays behind the line. Exactly where an F-class support belongs. The first clash is brutal. Mira moves fast. Her Grave Sentinel abilities let her strike spiritual anchors rather than physical bone, so her blade cuts through the first monster cleanly. But the others adapt. 1 crawls beneath a soldier's shield. Another launches itself over the formation. The 5th disappears into the collapsed chamber. Rowan watches. Not the monsters. The ground. Every grave eater is connected to something below. Thin streams of death energy run through the soil like veins. The creatures are not wandering out randomly. They are being pushed. Mira destroys the 2nd monster. The 3rd catches her shoulder and throws her into a broken wall. The patrol captain screams for retreat. That is when the buried chamber ruptures. A massive hand emerges, then a skull the size of a wagon. Whatever is beneath the mound is not another grave eater. It is wearing a corroded crown. Rowan recognizes the symbol engraved across its forehead. Circle, 3 lines. Broken crown, the same mark the rat drew. His interface reacts violently. First, seal integrity, 98%. Unauthorized royal corpse detected. Royal? That word matters. The giant undead drags itself halfway from the earth. Soldiers scatter. Mira tries to stand, but one leg refuses to cooperate. Rowan calculates the distance, then the number of corpses beneath the old road, then the radius of the dead zone from his previous tests. Bad idea. Extremely bad idea. Unfortunately, the alternative is letting everyone here die. Our necromancer steps past the retreating soldiers. The captain sees the F-class badge on his coat and nearly loses his mind. Rowan ignores him. He places one hand against the road. He has tested individual corpses, small groups, controlled targets. Now he tries something else. Not resurrection, recognition. He reaches downward with the strange instinct his class gives him and searches for every dead soldier buried beneath the fortress road. He finds hundreds, then thousands. The sensation almost knocks him unconscious. For a moment, Rowan understands why necromancers use mana threads. Threads create distance. Whatever his class is doing has none. Every corpse feels close enough to touch. The crowned giant swings toward Mira. Rowan closes his fingers. Stand. The Grey March answers. The earth trembles so violently that sections of the old fortress wall split apart. Weapons buried for decades erupt from the soil. Skeletons tear themselves upward by the hundreds. Dominion soldiers, Varkesian soldiers, dead cavalry, broken war beasts. None attack one another. Every skull faces Rowan. The living patrol goes completely silent. Even Mira forgets to breathe. A normal necromancer controls perhaps a handful of undead at Rowan's age. There are more than 1,000 standing around him, and that is not the terrifying part. The terrifying part is that Rowan can feel more, far more. The battlefield is packed with the dead. He has barely touched the surface. The crowned corpse roars. Rowan points at it. The army moves. No elaborate command, no formation order. The dead understand. 300 skeletons lock shields. Archers without bowstrings raise ruined weapons anyway, and black spectral strings suddenly form between their fingers. Cavalry skeletons climb onto dead horses. The entire battlefield reorganizes itself around one intention: destroy that target. The crowned creature charges. It crashes through the first shield line. Dozens of skeletons shatter. Rowan feels every destruction as a faint pressure behind his eyes. No pain, information. He adjusts. The second line opens instead of resisting. The giant steps into the gap. Spearmen attack the joints. Archers target the exposed spiritual core beneath its ribs. Mira sees the pattern immediately. These undead are not fighting like puppets. They are fighting like soldiers, veterans. The crowned monster crushes another dozen. Rowan watches its movement. Left arm slow. Right knee unstable. Spiritual core shifts whenever it roars. There. He changes one command. The undead cavalry charges from the side. The giant turns. That exposes its chest. Mira understands before anyone speaks. She launches herself from the broken wall, drives her grave sentinel blade between the creature's ribs, and strikes the spiritual core. The battlefield flashes white, the giant freezes, then more than 1,000 undead soldiers pull at once. The royal corpse comes apart, not explosively, systematically. Arm, leg, spine, skull. Every section is pinned to the ground before it can regenerate. A quiet chime sounds inside Rowan's head. Forbidden authority recognized. Royal corpse subdued. First seal integrity, 95%. The word appears again. Forbidden. Not F-class. Forbidden. Rowan stares at the message. So the registry did not misjudge his class. It misread it. Around him, the battlefield begins changing. The grass turns gray. Trees along the fortress road shed their leaves. The temperature plunges. A bird flying overhead crosses the invisible boundary and immediately veers away. Rowan releases the summons. The skeleton army sinks back into the ground, but the dead zone does not recover. This time it stretches across nearly half the old battlefield. The patrol captain looks at Rowan's F-class badge, then at the landscape, then back at the badge. No one laughs. No one even speaks. Mira finally walks toward him, limping slightly. She stops beside the shattered crown. There is writing underneath it, ancient script. Most of it has been destroyed by corrosion. Mira can read only one line. The king served the one beneath the 9th seal. Rowan's expression tightens. 9th? Mira points toward the symbol. 9 was considered forbidden in pre-Dominion burial doctrine. Records from that period were destroyed around 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years. Exactly the kind of coincidence Rowan does not trust. He opens his notebook and compares the carved symbol with the one drawn by the summoned rat. Perfect match. Then the ground beneath the shattered royal corpse cracks. Something black lies inside its chest cavity. A small iron fragment. Not armor, a piece of chain. The moment Rowan touches it, every corpse across the Grey March goes still. Completely still. His vision disappears. The 9 doors return. This time he stands closer. The first door is fractured from top to bottom. Behind it waits an ocean of silhouettes. Soldiers, monsters, kings. Things large enough to make castles look small. Black chains bind the door shut. One chain is missing a piece. The fragment in Rowan's hand, words appear across the darkness. Forbidden Necromancer. Authority restricted by 9 seals. Seal 1 degradation confirmed. Summoning output restriction partially released. Rowan finally sees what Class F actually means. It was never the bottom of the ranking system. It predates the ranking system. 1,000 years ago, someone did not classify this power. They sealed it. The vision fades. Rowan opens his eyes. The iron fragment is now embedded beneath the skin of his palm. Mira asks what happened. He closes his hand. Nothing useful. Another lie. This one is much better. Far beyond the Grey March, bells begin ringing inside the sealed catacombs beneath the Dominion capital. No priest is touching them. No wind reaches that deep. 9 ancient bells hang there. 8 remain silent. The first rings once. An elderly archivist freezes beside a shelf of prohibited records. He slowly turns toward a stone tablet no one has translated in generations. A single symbol on its surface has begun glowing. A circle, 3 vertical lines, a broken crown. Back at the battlefield, Rowan feels the same pulse through his palm. He does not know who built the 9 seals. He does not know why the old royal corpse recognized his authority. And he definitely does not know what waits behind the other 8 doors. But he knows one thing now. Every time he summons too much, the seal weakens. And when the seal weakens, his authority grows. Around his boots, one tiny patch of surviving grass quietly turns black. Rowan looks down. The first seal drops another fraction. Somewhere beneath thousands of graves, something ancient answers with a single heartbeat. The earth trembles. And this time, Rowan never gave it an order. By sunrise, the Grey March is officially classified as a restricted zone. Nobody mentions Rowan. That part is deliberate. The patrol captain files a report describing an unidentified necromantic surge, several awakened grave eaters, and the destruction of an ancient royal corpse. The document contains exactly 3 lines about the 17-year-old F-class necromancer standing at the center of the incident. Those 3 lines are sealed before noon. Rowan learns this because his field assignment suddenly ends 2 days early. No explanation. No disciplinary hearing. No reward either. Just a stamped order telling him to return to the capital and report for reassessment within 7 days. Our necromancer reads the paper once, then he folds it into quarters and puts it away. Someone noticed. That means his first problem is no longer figuring out what his class can do. It is figuring out how much he can safely let everyone else see. The iron fragment buried beneath his palm complicates things. It leaves no wound, no scar, but whenever Rowan passes within several feet of a corpse, the fragment turns cold. Fresh corpse, mild chill. Old corpse, sharper reaction. Anything carrying concentrated death energy makes the entire hand feel like it has been submerged in winter water. Useful. Potentially catastrophic. Exactly the kind of combination his life apparently specializes in now. Mira travels back with him. Officially, she is returning because her patrol rotation ended. Unofficially, she has spent the entire journey watching Rowan like he is a locked coffin that occasionally kicks from the inside. She finally speaks when they stop beside an abandoned toll station. You controlled more than 1,000. Rowan keeps tightening the strap on his travel bag. Approximately. An F-class necromancer can control 2. That sounds inconvenient. Mira stares at him. Rowan finishes with the strap. She does not leave. He eventually looks up. What? You are terrible at pretending this is normal. I'm not pretending it's normal. Then what are you pretending? That it's manageable. That answer finally shuts her up. Not because she believes him, because she understands the distinction. Rowan has spent the journey testing one theory in particular. The seal weakens through summoning, but not every summon damages it equally. Raising the dead costs something from the surrounding environment, and the scale appears linked to 3 factors: quantity, complexity, and authority. A dead animal barely matters. A human soldier matters more. The crowned corpse at Grey March causes a massive drop because it carries some ancient status his class recognizes. So Rowan needs controlled experiments, preferably somewhere without witnesses. He finds exactly that place 12 miles from the capital, an abandoned plague cemetery, no villages nearby, no active burial permits, no reason for anyone sane to visit. Perfect. Mira notices him leaving the road. You're going the wrong way, I know. That somehow makes this worse. Our guy continues walking. She follows. Of course she does. The cemetery is surrounded by leaning stone walls and dead cedar trees. Most graves are centuries old, their names erased by weather. Rowan does not summon immediately. First, he prepares. He marks 4 circles in the dirt at increasing distances from the oldest grave. Then he places fresh moss inside each circle. A jar of insects goes beside the moss. Finally, he sets a cheap mana crystal at each marker. Mira watches the arrangement. "You're measuring environmental drain," Rowan glances at her. "Apparently grave sentinels are useful. Apparently F-class necromancers are rude. Fair trade." He begins with one corpse. A hand rises through the soil. The first mana crystal dims slightly. The moss nearest the grave curls at the edges. The insects remain alive. Rowan dismisses the summon. Second test. 5 corpses. The soil cools. 2 crystals lose brightness. Several insects stop moving. First seal integrity remains at 95%. Interesting. Third test. 10 corpses. This time Rowan does not simply order them to stand. He gives them a task: dig. The skeletons immediately begin clearing soil from an abandoned mausoleum entrance. The seal drops by a tiny fraction. Rowan stops them. There it is. Summoning alone is not the real trigger. Authority is. The more complex the command, the more the sealed power pushes against its restraints. Mira reaches the same conclusion. Your class is responding to control. Looks that way. So stop. Rowan turns toward her. She gestures at the gray moss. You already know enough to understand this is dangerous. No, I know enough to understand that ignorance is more dangerous. Mira has no answer for that, he continues. But instead of increasing quantity, Rowan changes the command structure. 5 skeletons receive 5 separate instructions. 1 digs. 1 guards. 1 searches for metal. 1 repairs the collapsed cemetery gate. The last remains still until another skeleton approaches, then blocks its path. The result is immediate. The first seal trembles harder than it did with 10 identical workers. Rowan dismisses everything. So that is the mechanism. Not raw numbers. Independent command layers. Modern necromancers' puppet bodies. His class establishes hierarchy. That explains Grey March. He did not individually command 1,000 soldiers. He gave the battlefield an objective. The dead organized themselves. Our necromancer looks at the mausoleum. Time for something smaller, and much smarter. Inside, they find the remains of an old cemetery keeper. The corpse is almost completely skeletal, but a ring of iron keys still hangs from its belt. Rowan places 2 fingers against the stone floor. Rise. The skeleton sits up. No violent surge. No massive tremor. Only a low vibration beneath their feet. Its skull turns toward Rowan. Then it bows. Not good. Rowan never ordered that. Mira's hand moves toward her sword. He raises 1 finger. Wait. The skeleton points toward the back wall, then toward Rowan's palm. The iron fragment turns painfully cold. Something is behind the wall. Rowan orders the cemetery keeper to open it. The skeleton walks directly to a stone relief, inserts one of its rusted keys into what looks like a decorative crack, and twists. A hidden section of wall opens. Mira slowly looks at Rowan. You knew that was there? No, that thing did. Exactly. And that may be far more important than raising armies. Rowan has not restored the keeper's personality. But some form of memory remains inside the corpse. Procedural memory. Habits. Knowledge tied strongly enough to the body that death never completely erased it. 1,000 possible uses immediately appear. Soldiers remembering fortifications. Dead scholars remembering libraries. Assassins remembering routes. Officials remembering hidden archives. Kings remembering secrets. Rowan suppresses the thought before it runs too far. Test first, theory later. Behind the wall sits a narrow storage room. Most shelves have collapsed. Old burial ledgers cover the floor. At the center stands a stone box wrapped in decayed cloth. Mira examines the seal carved into its lid. Her expression changes. That symbol again. Circle. 3 lines. Broken crown. Rowan does not touch the box. Good instincts. Instead, he orders the cemetery keeper to approach. The skeleton takes 1 step, then stops. Its entire frame begins shaking. Not fear. Resistance. The bones physically refuse the command. Rowan feels pressure pushing back through the connection. For the first time, one of his undead has rejected him. He immediately releases the order. The shaking stops. Mira notices. It wouldn't go closer. No. Why? Rowan studies the box. Because whatever is inside outranks me. Silence. Yeah, that is not the answer either of them wanted. They leave the box untouched. For now, Rowan copies every visible marking into his notebook. Then he closes the hidden wall and orders the cemetery keeper back into its grave. Before descending, the skeleton turns toward him. 1 bony finger touches its own forehead, then its chest, then the ground. 3 gestures. Rowan records those too. The first seal remains stable. A successful experiment without losing another meaningful fraction. That matters. By the time they reach the capital, Rowan has a new rule. Small summons, simple authority. No royal dead, and absolutely no mass resurrection unless survival requires it. Naturally, the Royal Registry immediately tries to ruin that plan. His reassessment takes place beneath the Hall of Ascension, not above it. That alone tells Rowan this is no routine evaluation. 3 officials wait inside a reinforced chamber. One is a registry examiner. One wears the white mantle of the Temple of Dawn. The third has no insignia at all. Mira is ordered to remain outside. Rowan enters alone. A dead wolf lies on the testing floor. The examiner gestures toward it. Summon. He also knows the room contains 12 observation crystals, 2 visible, 10 hidden inside the walls. The iron fragment in his palm reacts faintly whenever he passes near one particular section. There is something dead behind it. Someone prepared a second test. Our necromancer crouches beside the wolf. He could raise it perfectly. Instead, he deliberately loosens his control. The wolf skeleton twitches. One leg rises. The skull bumps against the floor. Rowan makes the entire thing look painfully mediocre. The examiner frowns. The priest looks bored. The unmarked official does neither. Again, Rowan repeats it. This time the skeleton stands for 3 seconds before collapsing. The examiner writes something. Control limit? 2. Duration? Less than a minute. Mana consumption? High. Every answer matches what Class F is supposed to look like. Almost. The unmarked official finally speaks. Summon the body behind the western wall. There it is. Rowan looks at him. The examiner stops writing. Even the priest turns. Apparently that was not part of the approved test. Rowan gives the safest response possible. What body? The official smiles slightly. A good question. He taps the table. A section of wall opens. Behind it sits a preserved corpse in military armor. Rowan's palm goes numb with cold. Not royal. Something else. The corpse has no head. Its chest bears the same broken crown symbol. This is no random cadaver. Someone knows. Maybe not everything, but enough. Summon it, the official repeats. Rowan approaches slowly. The first seal reacts. 95%. Stable. He stops 6 feet away. The headless corpse suddenly moves. Nobody summoned it. Its hand slams against the glass enclosure. The examiner falls backward. The priest immediately raises a barrier. The unmarked official remains seated. Rowan watches the corpse. It is not trying to attack him. It is kneeling. One knee hits the floor. Then its fist presses against its chest. The same gesture as the cemetery keeper. Forehead, chest, ground. Except this corpse has no forehead left, so its hand touches the empty space above its neck. The room becomes painfully quiet. The unmarked official's smile disappears. Rowan makes his decision immediately. He acts confused. What is it doing? Nobody answers. Good. Confusion is useful when everyone else is more confused than you are. The priest orders the chamber sealed. The examiner starts shouting about contamination. Rowan is escorted outside before anyone performs another test. Mira is waiting. She takes one look at his face. What happened? They confirmed I'm terrible. You don't look disappointed. I've had practice. Behind them, heavy doors slam shut. The headless corpse is still kneeling. That night, Rowan receives his reassessment. Necromancer. Class F. No change. He also receives a provisional work license granting access to low-grade corpse disposal sites. That is much more valuable. Someone inside the registry wants him monitored. Rowan intends to make the surveillance useful. The next 3 weeks become a routine. Publicly, he performs miserable little corpse-cleaning jobs. A dead boar here. 2 bandit remains there. A skeleton pulled from a collapsed basement. His reputation settles exactly where he wants it. Harmless, weak, forgettable. Privately, every assignment becomes research. Rowan discovers that recently dead bodies retain stronger memories but weaker obedience. Older remains obey more cleanly but remember less. Soldiers preserve combat habits. Craftsmen preserve hand movements. Animals retain roots and territory. He never needs to ask the dead questions. He gives them tasks and watches what they already know how to do. That distinction becomes the foundation of everything. Mira occasionally joins him. Not because Rowan asks, she simply appears. She claims grave sentinels are required to inspect unusual corpse activity. Rowan points out that most of his assignments involve dead livestock. She stops using the excuse after that. Her own ability develops alongside his experiments. Normally, grave sentinels detect corrupted spirits. Around Rowan's summons, Mira begins seeing something else. Lines. Thin black structures connecting undead not directly to Rowan, but to one another. A hierarchy. When 5 skeletons work together, one naturally becomes the anchor. Destroying that anchor disrupts the others for several seconds. Rowan tests this intentionally. Then he changes which skeleton acts as anchor. Then he changes it again mid-task. The transition becomes smoother each time. There, a small mechanism. Something worth keeping. At Grey March, the dead army organized itself automatically. Now Rowan is learning to reproduce that effect consciously. Not an army yet, a squad. 5 undead, 1 anchor, 4 subordinate units. Independent commands without forcing Rowan to maintain 5 separate layers of authority. The first seal barely reacts. Efficient. Controlled. Dangerous enough. He names the structure a grave cell. Not because the system tells him to. Because writing small group of corpses that behaves disturbingly like a military unit every time would be ridiculous. The first real test comes sooner than expected. A corpse disposal request takes Rowan and Mira beneath the southern aqueduct. Several smugglers were killed inside an abandoned drainage network. Simple recovery job, except there are no corpses when they arrive. Only blood. Mira draws her blade. Rowan touches the wall. Still warm. Something dragged the bodies deeper underground. They follow. The tunnel widens into an old maintenance chamber. 7 men are waiting. Alive. Armed. And very surprised to see only 2 teenagers. Their leader wears a black leather coat marked with the crest of the Ash Market, the capital's largest illegal corpse trading network. Suddenly the missing bodies make sense. Fresh awakened corpses sell extremely well to illegal necromancers. The leader looks at Rowan's badge. Class F. His posture relaxes immediately. Bad decision. He tells Rowan and Mira to leave their equipment and walk away. Mira shifts her stance. Rowan notices 3 things. 2 crossbows above, 1 mage near the rear, and 4 wrapped corpses stacked beside a drainage gate. Fresh. He has never summoned someone killed only minutes earlier. Perfect time to learn. The first crossbow fires. Mira deflects it. The second bolt hits Rowan in the shoulder. Pain tears down his arm. The smugglers rush forward. Rowan retreats behind a stone pillar. Exactly what they expect from an F-class support. The leader laughs and orders 2 men to deal with Mira. Our necromancer grips the bolt and watches the battlefield. 7 enemies. Mira can handle perhaps 3 at once. The mage is preparing a flame spell. The wrapped corpses are positioned behind the smugglers. Useful. Rowan pulls the bolt free. Blood runs down his sleeve. He touches the floor. 4 bodies answer. The smugglers do not notice until the first corpse sits up behind them. 1 dead man still has a knife tied to his wrist. Another has a shattered leg. The third is missing several fingers. The 4th wears an Ash Market courier badge. Rowan gives 1 command. Remember, the word comes naturally. The first seal shudders. A tiny fraction disappears. The 4 dead men move. Not like zombies, like smugglers. The courier reaches beneath a drainage pipe and pulls out a hidden blade nobody else knew was there. The second corpse kicks open a concealed weapon cache. The third crawls toward a lever behind the wall. The 4th attacks, the mage from behind. Chaos. Beautiful, efficient chaos. The smuggler leader spins around. What the hell? Rowan steps from behind the pillar. He is pale from blood loss. Still calm, the mage throws fire. 1 corpse takes the blast. Rowan watches the formation collapse. The crossbowmen above turn toward the undead. That gives Mira the opening she needs. She moves. 1 strike cuts the first platform support. The second crossbowman falls. Her next attack breaks the leader's weapon. The smugglers finally understand. The weak necromancer is not overwhelming them with raw power. He is making their own dead infrastructure betray them. The corpse at the wall pulls the lever. A drainage gate opens. Water floods one side of the chamber. 3 smugglers lose their footing. Rowan assigns the courier as anchor. The black lines Mira sees snap into formation. Grave cell established. 4 units, 1 anchor. The system finally speaks up. Unauthorized formation recognized. Military command fragment restored. First seal compatibility increased. Rowan's eyes narrow. Restored. Not learned. Restored. Another piece of evidence. This class belonged to someone before him. Possibly many someones. The smuggler leader tries to run. Rowan does not chase. He orders the grave cell to block every exit. 4 corpses move before the man takes 3 steps. Done. Mira knocks him unconscious with the flat of her blade. The remaining smugglers surrender. For several seconds, only rushing water fills the chamber. Then Mira looks at the 4 undead. They remembered. Rowan presses 1 hand against his injured shoulder. Yes. Their training? More than that. He points toward the hidden weapon cache. Their routines. Mira looks toward the unconscious leader. Then back at Rowan. She understands the implication. Dead enemies are no longer just soldiers for him. They are evidence, keys, maps, habits, secrets. The Ash Market has just handed Rowan something far more valuable than 4 corpses. It has handed him access. Before dismissing the courier, Rowan gives it 1 final instruction. Go home. The corpse turns. It walks toward a tunnel neither Rowan nor Mira noticed. There is no hesitation. Our necromancer smiles for the first time all night. Now they know where the Ash Market keeps one of its entrances. He does not raid it. Not yet. Instead, Rowan spends the next several days preparing. He submits the captured smugglers to the city watch. He says nothing about the hidden route. He returns to ordinary corpse disposal work. He deliberately performs badly during 2 public assignments. He even allows one summoned skeleton to fall apart in front of a registry observer. Meanwhile, the grave cell follows the courier's remembered route underground. 4 skeletons. No dramatic army. No earth-shaking resurrection. Just dead men walking through tunnels they already knew in life. They locate 3 storage rooms, 2 escape routes, a bribed watch checkpoint, and 1 locked chamber marked with the broken crown. Again, Rowan does not open it. That is now 2 hidden locations bearing the same symbol. The Plague Cemetery, the Ash Market. Neither should have any connection to an ancient battlefield king. Yet they do. More importantly, the Ash Market smugglers have been moving sealed objects without understanding what they are. Someone is buying them. Rowan begins building a pattern, not with theories. With locations, he copies the capital map into his notebook. Grey March, Plague Cemetery, Southern Aqueduct. He marks each Broken Crown site. 3 points. A triangle forms around the eastern half of the capital. Mira studies the map beside him. What's in the middle? Rowan checks. The Royal Registry. Of course it is. That would almost be funny if it were not so bad. He does not investigate the registry. He does something much safer. He feeds the Ash Market false information. 1 captured smuggler is released after questioning because the City Watch cannot prove enough to hold him. Rowan makes sure the man sees a transport manifest before leaving. The document claims a valuable pre-Dominion corpse has been recovered from Grey March and will pass through the Eastern Mortuary in 3 nights. There is no valuable corpse. The manifest is copied from a real registry form Rowan receives during work. The route is legitimate. The seal is legitimate. Only the cargo is fake. Mira watches him leave the document where the prisoner can glimpse it. You're baiting them. Rowan adjusts the papers. I'm filing. That is absolutely not filing. The released smuggler leaves. Rowan never follows him. He does not need to. A dead rat does. Small summon. Almost no environmental drain. No visible necromantic signature beyond a few feet. The rat follows the man through the lower district, then into a bathhouse, then beneath the bathhouse. Rowan dismisses it before the connection stretches too far. Enough. The Ash Market took the bait. Now he waits. And while he waits, his grave cell improves. The anchor learns to redistribute simple objectives among subordinate undead. If one skeleton loses an arm, another automatically takes over its task. If the anchor falls, the nearest unit inherits command for several seconds. Crude, but functional. The same principle appeared naturally at Grey March. Rowan is simply learning to recreate it without tearing open the seal. Chekhov would probably approve. The system certainly does. A message burns quietly across his awareness during the 5th successful formation. Military command fragment stabilized. Grave cell efficiency increased. Additional hierarchy inaccessible. Requirement. First seal release threshold unmet. Rowan dismisses the notification. He is not lowering that threshold intentionally. Whatever waits behind the first seal can stay there. For now. 3 nights later, the Eastern Mortuary receives visitors. 12 Ash Market operatives arrive through underground passages. Rowan watches from a rooftop across the street. Mira stands beside him. City Watch officers wait 2 blocks away, but Rowan has told them only that smugglers may attempt a theft. No mention of forbidden symbols. No mention of seals. No mention of the fact that 4 corpses are already lying inside the mortuary as his grave cell. The smugglers enter. They find the fake transport coffin. They open it, empty. One man immediately realizes something is wrong. Too late. The doors lock. The dead rise, not hundreds. 4. That is enough. The grave cell does not attack. It drives them toward the rear exit. Exactly where Rowan wants them. The smugglers break through. They flee underground. Our necromancer follows from a distance. This is the important part. He does not want the Ash Market's warehouse. He wants whoever the Ash Market calls when something goes wrong. The fleeing operatives split twice. One group heads toward the bathhouse. Another disappears into the old sewer district. The final pair takes a route north. Toward the registry, Rowan and Mira follow them through abandoned service tunnels. The route ends beneath a chapel used by registry clerks. The 2 smugglers knock 3 times. Pause. Twice. A door opens. A man in registry robes steps out. Rowan recognizes him, the examiner from his reassessment, not the unmarked official, the nervous one. The man takes a package from the smugglers. Then he says something Rowan cannot hear. Mira leans closer. Her grave sentinel sight is focused on the package. Black lines crawl across it. What is that? Rowan's palm answers before he can. Cold shoots through his entire arm. The first seal trembles. The package contains another chain fragment, this one larger. The examiner unwraps it. The broken crown symbol is carved into the metal. And suddenly Rowan understands the trap was never about exposing smugglers. It has exposed a supply line. Someone inside the Royal Registry has been collecting pieces of whatever once sealed his class. The examiner hands over a pouch of coins. The smugglers leave. Rowan does not confront him. He does not even move. That would waste the advantage. Instead, our necromancer watches the examiner carry the fragment through a hidden registry entrance. Then he marks the location. One more point, one more route, one more piece. The Ash Market thinks it is selling antiques. The registry thinks Rowan is an F-class failure. And whoever ordered those fragments collected has no idea that the person capable of activating them is already walking through their building. Rowan closes his notebook. Mira looks at him. What now? He glances toward the registry tower rising above the sleeping capital. No raids. No confrontation. No. She waits. Rowan turns away. We let them keep buying. That gets her attention. Every chain fragment they collect saves Rowan the trouble of finding it himself. Every courier reveals another route. Every transaction identifies another person involved. He does not need to break into the conspiracy. He only needs to let the conspiracy assemble his evidence for him. Far below the registry, the examiner places the newly purchased fragment inside a locked iron cabinet. 7 other pieces already lie there. He never notices that the fragment begins vibrating. One piece, then another, then all 8. The sound travels through the cabinet, through the floor, down into foundations older than the capital itself. Deep beneath the registry sits a sealed stone door nobody has opened in centuries. A circle is carved across its surface. 3 vertical lines divide it. Above them rests a broken crown. For the first time in 1,000 years, something scratches from the other side. Across the city, Rowan wakes instantly. The iron beneath his palm burns cold. His interface opens without being summoned. First seal integrity, 94%. External seal fragments detected. Authority resonance established. Rowan sits on the edge of his bed. He did not summon anything. He did not issue a command. Yet the seal weakened anyway. That changes the equation. Someone else can affect it. And if 8 fragments are already inside the registry, then the people collecting them may be much closer to opening the first seal than Rowan ever intended to be. Our necromancer reaches for his notebook. He crosses out one sentence. Do not investigate the registry. Underneath, he writes a new one. Find out who is assembling the chain. Outside his window, the capital remains peaceful. Carriages move through morning streets. Temple bells announce dawn. Merchants raise their shutters. Nobody notices the flock of crows abandoning the registry roof all at once. Nobody notices the worms crawling out of the flower beds surrounding its foundation. And nobody notices the thin circle of grass around the building beginning to lose its color. Rowan does. This time, he knows exactly what it means. The dead zone is spreading without him. The Royal Registry loses 12 years of archived corpse records in 14 seconds. No fire, no thief, no broken lock. The ink simply vanishes. Rowan arrives 3 minutes later and immediately knows the dead zone has reached farther than anyone realizes. Every document inside Archive Room 6 concerns pre-Dominion burials. Every page dealing with ordinary graves remains untouched. Only records connected to the broken crown symbol have gone blank. That is not decay. That is selection. And selection means intent. Our necromancer stands behind a line of panicking clerks while senior officials argue over contamination protocols. Nobody notices him. Perfect. His provisional license gives him permission to enter because one archivist collapsed during the incident and the registry wants every necromantic possibility checked. The archivist is alive, barely. His skin is gray. His pulse is slow. But what interests Rowan is the shadow beneath the man. It moves half a second later than he does. That should not happen. Mira sees it too. Her grave sentinel sight activates. Thin blue light gathers around her pupils. Then she takes one immediate step backward. Rowan, quiet voice, serious tone. That is enough. He kneels beside the archivist. The iron fragment beneath his palm becomes painfully cold. Not because the man is dying, because something dead is attached to him. Rowan does not summon. He listens. The class interface remains silent. That is worse. Normally, anything linked to death registers somehow. This does not. The archivist suddenly grabs Rowan's wrist. His eyes open. Black veins spread across the whites. The chain remembers the hand. Then he stops breathing. Every lantern in the room goes out. The shadow beneath him remains upright. Yeah, that is new. The thing peels itself from the floor. No bones, no corpse, no spirit structure Mira recognizes. Just a human-shaped absence where light refuses to stay. The clerks scream. Registry guards rush forward. Their enchanted blades pass straight through it. The shadow moves once. 3 guards slam into the wall. Rowan watches the impact pattern. No visible limbs, no casting gesture. Pressure displacement. It is not striking them physically, it is commanding the space around their bodies to reject them. That thought arrives cold and clean. Authority, the same concept behind his class. Mira attacks. Her grave sentinel blade shines silver and cuts through the shadow's shoulder. For the first time, the creature reacts. Its form distorts. Then 6 black lines erupt from the floor and wrap around her arms. Rowan steps forward. The registry examiner from his reassessment sees him. Stay back. Rowan ignores him. The examiner grabs his coat. Your class cannot handle this. Our guy looks at the man's hand, then at the hidden pocket beneath his robe. Something inside it carries the broken crown resonance. Another fragment. Interesting. Later, the shadow lifts Mira off the floor. Rowan has no corpse nearby powerful enough to matter. No battlefield, no army, no convenient royal dead. Good. That means he has to solve the actual problem instead of throwing numbers at it. He studies the creature. It emerged from a dead man. It responds to grave sentinel energy, and it uses authority without a body. So maybe the archivist is not the source. Maybe he is the door. Rowan looks at the corpse. Then at its unmoving eyes. One possibility, bad one. He touches the archivist's chest. Rise. The floor cracks. Not from force. From cold. The dead man sits upright. The shadow freezes. For a fraction of a second, its grip on Mira weakens. There, connection confirmed. Rowan gives the corpse a second command. Take it back. The first seal drops, 93.8%. The archivist opens his mouth. The shadow jerks violently. Black lines stretch between corpse and entity. Mira hits the floor. She does not waste the opening. Her blade drives into the nearest line. Silver light bursts across the archive. The shadow folds inward. The archivist's corpse convulses. Rowan feels resistance. Not from the dead man, from whatever is trying to remain outside him. This is different from controlling undead. This is forcing something to obey the relationship between body and death. The seal responds. A new sensation opens behind Rowan's eyes. Not a skill. A structure. He sees the corpse as a locked point. The shadow is something that crossed a boundary. And between them, a line. He grabs it, not physically. Authority closes around the connection. The creature shrieks without making sound. Every glass case in the room shatters. The examiner drops to the floor. Mira drives her blade through the final black tether. Rowan pulls. The shadow collapses back into the dead archivist. His body hits the floor. Still. This time, properly still. A message burns across Rowan's awareness. Boundary command detected. Unregistered function recovered. Designation unavailable. Seal authority fragment recognized. Our necromancer stares at the corpse. Recovered. Again. Not created. Not learned. Recovered. The class keeps treating his abilities like missing pieces returning to their original places. That is becoming impossible to ignore. Registry guards surround the room. Several are staring at Rowan. Bad. Very bad. They saw enough. Not everything, but enough. The examiner pushes himself upright. His face has lost all color. What did you do? Rowan looks at the dead archivist. Summoned him. That was not a standard summon. No. The examiner's eyes narrow. Rowan lets the silence sit. The man expected denial. That would be suspicious now. A partial truth is safer. My class reacts strangely to corrupted dead. The examiner glances toward Mira. She does not contradict him. Good. The unmarked official from Rowan's reassessment appears 5 minutes later. No one announces him. He simply enters. Tall. Gray coat. No crest. The room quiets anyway. Rowan finally learns his name when a guard addresses him. Director Severin Holt. Not registry director. Director of what remains unclear. Holt examines the dead archivist. Then the broken cases. Then Rowan. Class F. Rowan nods. Holt almost smiles. Remarkable. That word is worse than an accusation. Accusations reveal what the other person knows. Remarkable reveals nothing. Holt orders everyone except Rowan and Mira out. The examiner hesitates. Holt looks at him once. The man leaves immediately. Interesting power structure. Rowan files that away. Holt walks toward the blank archives. Do you know what disappeared? Records. Specific records. I noticed. Of course you did. Mira's grip tightens around her sword. Holt ignores her. He lifts one blank page. Every erased document concerns burials older than 900 years. Rowan says nothing. Most involve unauthorized necromantic sites. Still nothing. Several contain a symbol. There it is. Holt draws the broken crown with one finger across the dust. Rowan makes himself look at it for 1 second too long. Enough to seem unfamiliar. Not enough to look theatrical. Holt watches him carefully. You've seen it. Rowan answers with the safest truth available. At Grey March. Mira shifts slightly. Holt notices. Of course he does. And nowhere else? No. Lie. Plague Cemetery. Ash Market Chamber, underground registry route. Rowan keeps all three inside his skull. Holt folds the blank page. That symbol belonged to a burial authority, erased from public doctrine after the War of 9 Crowns. Finally, a name. Rowan remains still. Holt continues. 1,000 years ago, necromancy was not ranked by combat grade. That sentence hits harder than it should. Because Rowan already suspected it. Hearing confirmation changes suspicion into structure. There were jurisdictions, Holt says. Rights over certain forms of death, certain battlefields, certain bloodlines. Mira frowns. Rights? Authority. Rowan's palm turns cold. Holt notices his fingers move. Tiny mistake. The director says nothing. Instead, he walks toward the dead archivist. This man was researching those authorities. Why? Mira asks. Holt looks at her. Because someone is rebuilding one. Silence. Rowan's internal model changes instantly. He had assumed the registry fragments were being collected to study the seal. Wrong. Someone may be reconstructing the system around it. That means the chain is not merely a lock, it may be part of a larger mechanism. And if someone else is assembling that mechanism, then waiting for them to gather every fragment is no longer automatically the safest option. Recalibration. Immediate. Rowan crosses out another assumption in his head. Let them collect everything. No. Now the goal changes. Track the fragments, identify the assembler, control the final piece before they do. Holt watches him. You look thoughtful. I'm wondering why this is my problem. Because the thing in this room responded to you. Rowan glances at the corpse. Maybe it hated my face. Mira almost looks annoyed. Holt actually laughs once. Very quietly. Then the humor disappears. 3 people have died this month after handling pre-Dominion seal fragments. Rowan's eyes sharpen. 3? Holt nods. The registry knows of 2. That distinction matters. Mira catches it too. Who knows of the 3rd? Holt looks toward the door. Not an answer. Still useful. There are factions inside the registry. Possibly one collecting fragments, possibly another investigating them. And Holt does not trust the official institution enough to disclose everything. Excellent. More problems. Rowan's favorite. Holt gives him an assignment. Unofficial. A corpse has been recovered from beneath St. Orison Bridge. No identity, no visible wounds. The body carries a pre-Dominion seal mark beneath the tongue. Rowan is to examine it privately. Mira is ordered to accompany him. No registry escort. No report unless Holt receives it directly. Our necromancer accepts. Not because he trusts Holt, because controlled access to another marked corpse is too useful to refuse. St. Orison Bridge stands over the capital's oldest canal. The body waits inside an abandoned customs station beneath the eastern arch. Male, middle-aged, fine clothes, clean hands, no obvious profession. Rowan does not summon immediately. He checks the room. 2 exits. 1 upper window. No hidden observation crystals. Mira examines the corpse. Death residue is wrong. How wrong? Too clean. Rowan understands. Fresh corpses carry noise, fear, pain, mana disturbance. This one feels polished. Like someone erased the process of dying. He opens the mouth. There. Broken crown, burned beneath the tongue. The iron fragment in his palm turns cold. Then hot. First time that happens. Rowan withdraws his hand. The corpse's eyes open. Mira draws her blade. The dead man does not move. His mouth opens. One word comes out. Witness. Then the body goes limp again. Rowan stares at it. No summon. No command. No seal drop. Something used the corpse to deliver a message. Mira asks the obvious question. Witness what? The canal explodes. Stone bursts inward. Water floods the customs station. A creature crashes through the wall. Not undead. Alive. Unfortunately, it resembles a long reptilian beast covered in bone plates, but black burial chains have been driven directly through its spine. Each chain carries the broken crown mark. The creature roars. Every corpse stored in the nearby mortuary district responds. Rowan feels them. Dozens, then hundreds. Not to him. To the beast. That is the first truly bad sign. Something else is commanding the dead. The beast charges. Mira takes the first hit and slides across wet stone. Her barrier catches most of it. Most. Blood appears at the corner of her mouth. Rowan moves sideways. He watches the chains. 4 visible anchor points. One buried deeper near the chest. The beast attacks again. He lets it. Not because he enjoys getting nearly crushed, because the chains react differently whenever it changes direction. There. The chest anchor controls the others. Same hierarchy principle as his grave cell. Whoever built this thing understands command layering. Maybe better than he does. That thought is unpleasant. Mira cuts one chain. The beast barely reacts. Rowan raises the dead customs corpse. Stand. The marked man rises instantly. Too instantly. Rowan feels another authority already inside it. contested control. For the first time, his summon has an owner, or at least something close to one. The corpse turns toward Rowan. Its hand reaches for his throat. Our necromancer steps inside the movement instead of away. He grabs the corpse's wrist, then activates the boundary structure he discovered in the archive. Body, death, foreign authority, connection. He sees the line. This time it does not lead into the corpse's shadow, it leads out of the building. Across the canal, underground, someone is controlling it remotely. Rowan's expression changes. Finally, a trail. The beast slams into him. He gets thrown across the station, hard. Pain explodes through his ribs. The boundary connection nearly breaks. Mira intercepts the next charge. Her sword cuts a bright line across the creature's jaw. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. Fair request. Rowan rises. The corpse attacks again. He catches its arm. Then instead of breaking foreign control, he leaves it intact and inserts his own command beside it. The first seal jolts, 93.1%. For one horrible second, both authorities exist inside the same corpse. The dead man shudders. Then Rowan gives one instruction. Point. The corpse's arm turns, not toward Rowan, not toward the beast, toward the eastern canal tunnel. Mira sees it. So does Rowan. Remote controller located. Good. Now survive. The bone-plated creature charges again. Rowan calls the 4 oldest corpses buried beneath the customs foundation. Only 4. His grave cell rises through the flooded floor. 1 anchor. 3 units. The seal barely moves. The beast crashes into them. 2 skeletons shatter immediately. Exactly as expected. The anchor does not defend. It changes roles. The remaining unit inherits the formation. Rowan watches the transfer. Cleaner than before. That is the piece he needs. He gives a new command. Bind the chain, not the body. The undead stop attacking the creature. They grab the black burial chains. Mira understands instantly. She strikes the chest anchor. Once. The beast roars. Twice. Crack. The external chains go slack. Rowan pulls with the grave cell. The chest seal tears free. The creature collapses. Not dead. Released. The black bone plates begin falling from its body. Underneath is an ordinary canal drake. Terrified, bleeding, alive. Mira lowers her sword. The drake scrambles through the broken wall and disappears into the water. Rowan lets it go. The marked corpse remains standing. Its finger still points east, toward whoever controlled it. Our necromancer dismisses the grave cell. Then he looks at the corpse. Walk. It obeys. Mira staris. You're following the controller. Yes. This could be a trap. Yes. You're still going. Yes. She exhales through her nose. I hate how predictable that answer is. They follow the corpse into the eastern canal tunnels. The route winds beneath 3 districts, past abandoned cisterns, past sealed foundations, past stonework older than the Dominion. Eventually, the corpse stops in front of a circular iron door. No handle, no lock, only 9 narrow sockets. 8 are empty. One contains a piece of black chain. Rowan's palm reacts. The first seal trembles. Behind the door, something moves. Not a monster. Footsteps. Human footsteps. Then a voice speaks from the other side. Calm. Male. Young. Class F finally found the trail. Rowan does not answer. Mira raises her blade. The voice continues. Good. A slot opens in the iron door. Something slides through. A black metal token. Broken crown on one side. A single word on the other. Witness. Rowan does not touch it. Smart man. The voice behind the door laughs softly. Then the footsteps retreat. By the time Mira forces the door open, the chamber beyond is empty, except for one thing, a wall covered in names. Hundreds of them, most crossed out, some marked with dates going back centuries. And near the bottom, freshly carved into the stone Rowan Vale. No class rank, no title, only his name. Beside it are 9 empty circles. The first has already been partially filled with black ink. Rowan studies the mark. He does not panic. He does not swear. He simply updates the plan. Someone knows what he is. Someone expected him to find this place. And someone has been waiting long enough to prepare his name before he ever arrived. Mira looks toward him. What does this change? Rowan picks up the black token using a strip of cloth. Everything. For once, that is not exaggeration. Far below their feet, something shifts inside the ancient foundations. The first circle on the wall darkens another fraction. And inside Rowan's mind, the sealed structure answers. First seal threshold approaching. Dormant function detected. Designation recovered. Grave Dominion. Locked. Rowan stares at the words. He has never used that skill. He does not know what it does. But the moment the name appears, every dead thing within 3 streets silently turns its face toward the canal. Even the corpses still buried underground. Mira feels the movement through her grave sentinel sight. Her face goes pale. Rowan closes the interface immediately. The effect stops. Good. Small test, terrifying result, and somewhere behind the maze of tunnels, the unknown controller is already gone. But now Rowan knows something he did not know yesterday. He is not the only one playing with authority over death. And whoever came first has just invited him onto the board. The first thing Rowan does after discovering his name carved into an underground wall is absolutely nothing. For 6 hours, no raid, no dramatic confrontation, no desperate attempt to chase the unknown controller through the canal network. He goes home. He eats. He sleeps. Then he wakes before dawn and starts reorganizing every piece of information he has. Because whoever built that chamber wants him reactive. So naturally, our necromancer refuses to give them the satisfaction. The black witness token sits inside a glass jar on his desk. He has not touched it directly. He has not activated it. He has not even moved it without cloth. Mira sits across from him while he redraws the capital map for the 3rd time. Grey March, the Plague Cemetery, the Ash Market Chamber, the Hidden Registry Route, the Canal Door, 5 points carrying the broken crown symbol. Previously, Rowan believed the pattern formed around the registry. Now that theory looks incomplete. The locations do not simply surround one institution. They connect to older foundations beneath it. Burial tunnels, military crypts, collapsed aqueducts, pre-Dominion chambers sealed underneath modern streets. Someone built the capital on top of a necromantic structure. Or worse, the capital was built because that structure already existed. Mira studies the map. The sites make a ring. Almost. Almost. Rowan draws one missing arc. There should be another point here. He taps the northern district, the Royal Ossuary, the oldest legal burial complex in the capital. Mira looks at him. You think another seal fragment is there? No. That answer surprises her. Rowan points toward the shape. I think whoever made this system expects one to be there. Important difference. He still does not know whether the broken crown sites are storage chambers, control points, old prisons, or something worse. Assuming function before evidence would get him killed, so he tests the pattern indirectly. First, the Ash Market. Rowan does not destroy it, he expands it, or more accurately, he makes sure the smugglers think business has become easier. 2 corpse shipments that would normally be intercepted by city watch patrols somehow pass through untouched. A registry inspection gets delayed. One bribed gatekeeper finds his replacement unexpectedly absent. None of these events appear connected. That is the point. The Ash Market begins moving more pre-Dominion material through the capital. Exactly what Rowan wants. Mira realizes the strategy after the 3rd day. You're making the pipeline larger. Yes. So more fragments move. Yes. And then we follow them. Yes. She folds her arms. You know this sounds dangerously close to helping criminals. Rowan looks up from a corpse disposal invoice. I'm helping logistics. That is not better. It is technically, but he decides not to argue. The released smuggler from before becomes Rowan's unwilling guide, not through surveillance. That would be too obvious. Instead, Rowan uses the dead around him. A rat beneath the bathhouse, a drowned dog near the canal. 2 skeletons buried beneath an abandoned loading yard. Each summon is tiny, minimal authority, minimal seal degradation. The city becomes a network of silent observation points, not permanent, not omniscient, just enough. Our necromancer does not need to see everything. He only needs to see where unusual packages keep going, and one route appears repeatedly. Northern District. Royal Ossuary. There it is. Mira accompanies him under official pretense. The ossuary allows grave sentinels to inspect burial corruption. Rowan enters as licensed corpse support. Nobody questions an F-class necromancer carrying cleaning tools. That rank is becoming incredibly useful. The Royal Ossuary is nothing like Grey March. Everything here is controlled. White stone corridors, bronze nameplates, incense designed to suppress residual spirit activity. Hundreds of noble families store ancestral remains below. Each crypt carries legal wards. Each ward carries a registry signature. And beneath all of it, Rowan feels pressure. Not death, suppression. The entire building is sitting on top of something trying very hard not to be noticed. Mira feels it too. Her grave sentinel sight flickers twice before stabilizing. Something is interfering. With your class? With every dead thing here. That matters. Rowan approaches the nearest crypt. Normally, a corpse this old would register immediately through his authority. Here, almost nothing. The dead are muffled. Not silent. Muffled. Someone has built a larger boundary structure over the ossuary. Maybe the same principle he discovered in Archive Room 6. Body. Death. Authority. Connection. Except this one covers an entire complex. Our necromancer files away another possibility. Grave Dominion may not mean army. It may mean territory. That thought stays inside his head. No activation. Not yet. They descend 3 levels, then 4. The official map ends at 3. Naturally, a stairwell marked for maintenance continues downward. The guard at the entrance carries a registry badge. Rowan recognizes him, same man who accepted bribes at the Ash Market checkpoint. The pipeline reaches here. Good, Mira speaks first. Grave Sentinel inspection. The guard checks her credentials. Then Rowan's. His eyes linger on Class F, instantly dismissive. Also good. They pass. Below the mapped levels, the architecture changes. White stone becomes black. Modern lamps disappear. Old iron braziers line the walls, all unlit. The broken crown symbol appears every 20 feet. No longer hidden, no longer subtle. Rowan counts them. 9. Then another 9. Then another. Repeating structure. At the end of the corridor stands an iron door. No lock. One circular indentation, exactly the size of the witness token. Mira looks at Rowan. He looks at the jar inside his bag. Convenient. Too convenient. He does not use it. Instead, he raises one corpse. A noble skeleton from an unlocked maintenance crypt. Old. Minimal memory. Strong obedience. Rowan gives a simple task. Open. The skeleton walks to the door. It places one hand against the circular indentation. Nothing happens. Then the bones begin vibrating. The skeleton turns its skull toward Rowan. Not refusal. Recognition. The same response as the cemetery keeper near the sealed stone box. Something beyond this door carries higher authority. Rowan dismisses the summon immediately. Seal integrity remains stable. Mira studies the door. We need the token. No. Why? Because that's what they expect. She glances at him. Then how do we get inside? Rowan looks toward the corridor. We don't. Not today. He leaves. Mira follows, visibly annoyed. But 10 minutes later she understands. The guard who let them through disappears from his post. Then returns. Different posture, different breathing. Same uniform, replacement. Someone reacted to their presence. That means the door matters. And whoever controls access noticed them. Exactly the information Rowan wanted. They leave the ossuary without forcing anything. By evening, the trap starts closing. The bribed guard sends a message through an Ash Market courier. Rowan's dead rat follows. The courier does not go to the registry. He goes to a private townhouse in the Scholar District. Nothing about the building looks important. No guards. No official crest. No magical barrier. Perfect place for people who do not want attention. Rowan does not enter. Instead, he watches the dead. There are 12 corpses buried beneath the garden. Too many for a townhouse. All old. All positioned intentionally. 4 at the corners. 4 around the foundation. 4 beneath the central floor. A formation. His palm turns cold. Authority structure. This house is protected by a dead network. Someone else built a grave cell. Larger. Older. More sophisticated. That is the first moment Rowan feels actual competition. Not fear. Competition. Someone understood the same principle centuries before him. Mira observes the garden through Grave Sentinel's sight. Her expression tightens. The corpses are connected. I know. The pattern changes every few seconds. Rowan watches. Yes, anchor rotation. Automatic. More advanced than his own system. Whoever established this formation solved a problem he only recently discovered. That means copying it would save him weeks, potentially months. Tempting. Very tempting. He does not act. Instead, Rowan spends the next 2 nights studying the pattern from a distance. Every rotation follows a sequence. Corner, foundation, center, repeat. 12 undead positions behaving like one defensive mind. No active necromancer nearby. So the system persists without constant control. That is the breakthrough. Rowan assumed grave cells require his presence. Wrong. Authority can be embedded into structure. That changes scale completely. An army is exhausting. A territory that commands itself is something else. On the 3rd night, Rowan tests the concept. Far from the townhouse, inside an abandoned quarry. 4 skeletons, 1 anchor, 1 simple objective. Protect the lantern. He sets them in formation, then walks away. At 50 feet, the connection weakens. At 100, control becomes unstable. At 200, the formation should collapse. It does not. The anchor maintains the command. The other 3 continue protecting the lantern. Rowan stops. The first seal shifts. 92.9%. A message appears. Delegated authority accepted. Grave cell autonomy increased. Dormant structure resonance detected. Grave dominion compatibility rising. Our necromancer dismisses the formation immediately. Enough. Small test. Critical result. He can build undead systems that continue functioning without him. The possibilities are ridiculous. So are the risks. He writes 1 sentence in his notebook. Never scale before failsafe. Mira reads it over his shoulder. At least one of us is sensible. Rowan closes the notebook. Debatable. The ash market keeps moving fragments. The townhouse keeps receiving reports. The royal ossuary remains sealed. And inside the registry, something else starts moving. Director Holt summons Rowan again. This time, not underground. His office sits on the 4th floor overlooking the central plaza. Normal room, normal desk, absolutely abnormal security. 3 anti-scrying wards, 2 hidden blades in the furniture, 1 corpse sealed behind the bookshelf. Rowan senses it immediately. Holt notices. You can feel that. Not a question. Rowan looks at the bookshelf. Yes. Holt walks over and opens the hidden compartment. Inside is a skeleton dressed in ancient registry armor, broken crown carved into its sternum. Rowan's hand turns cold. Do you know what this is? No. Partial truth. He knows the symbol, not the corpse. Holt removes a metal plate from the skeleton's chest. Words cover it in old script. Mira reads enough to understand. Custodian. Holt nods. Dominion Burial Administrator. Rowan looks at the skeleton again. Administrator. Not soldier. Good. That means there were formal ranks within this old authority system. Holt places the plate on his desk. The War of 9 Crowns ended with an agreement. Between kingdoms? No. Holt looks at Rowan. Between the living and the people who controlled the dead. That is worse. Much worse. According to surviving fragments, ancient necromancers once governed entire territories through something called dominions. Not armies. Not summon limits. Jurisdictions. Inside a dominion, death itself answered to its ruler. Corpses, spirits, burial grounds, residual memory, even the ability of bodies to remain dead could be regulated. Rowan says nothing. Because one phrase is already sitting inside his interface, grave dominion, Holt continues. The strongest dominion was sealed after its ruler attempted to expand beyond the dead. Mira frowns. Beyond. Holt gestures toward the living city outside. Battlefields stopped growing crops. Wells turned sterile. Newborn animals died near conquered ground. Rowan's expression stays neutral. Inside, everything aligns. Gray march. Dead grass. Dead insects. The expanding zone. His class does not merely consume vitality as fuel, it changes jurisdiction. Where his authority spreads, life becomes less valid. That is why battlefields become dead zones. Not collateral damage. Territorial conversion. Our necromancer finally understands the real danger. If Grave Dominion fully activates, the world around him may begin becoming compatible with death simply because he is there. Holt watches his reaction. You look less surprised than I expected. Your delivery needs work. Mira closes her eyes briefly. Holt actually seems entertained. Then he drops the important part. The ruler of that dominion was called the Forbidden King. Silence. Not Necromancer King, not Grave King, Forbidden King. Class F Rowan feels the connection instantly. Holt continues. After the war, the title was erased. The dominion was divided into 9 sealed authorities. 9 seals, there it is. Not chains restraining one power. 9 pieces restraining one jurisdiction. The first seal may not contain a skill. It may contain territory. Rowan asks the first question that matters. Where are the seals? Holt looks toward the floor. Somewhere beneath the capital. Lie, or incomplete truth. Rowan already knows fragments are moving. Holt almost certainly knows more, but not enough. Otherwise, he would not need Rowan. The director slides a document across the desk. 3 names. Registry Examiner Pel Orvin. Ossuary Custodian Maris Ven. Scholar Dorian Sable. Rowan recognizes the first. The examiner who handled fragment purchases. The second may control the ossuary guard network. The third owns the townhouse. Finally, concrete structure. Holt has been investigating them separately. He suspects they belong to a group called the Sepulchre Cabinet. Not a cult, not a mystical order. A hidden administrative faction inside the Dominion bureaucracy. Archivists, burial clerks, corpse transport officials, inheritance registrars. People who control where dead bodies go, how they are cataloged, and which old sites remain sealed. Boring jobs, perfect cover. For generations, the cabinet has quietly collected pre-Dominion authority fragments under the excuse of historical preservation. Holt believes they are trying to reconstruct one of the 9 seals. Rowan corrects him internally. Not one. At least the first, maybe more. The deeper layer is finally taking shape. The visible problem is smuggling. The hidden problem is bureaucracy. The people rebuilding the Forbidden Authority are not rogue necromancers hiding in caves. They are administrators with legal access to the dead. That is much harder to fight, and much smarter. Holt wants Rowan to help identify which fragment the cabinet lacks. He assumes Rowan's strange class can detect resonance. Correct. He does not know why. Useful. Rowan accepts. Again. Not because he trusts Holt, because now he has names. He begins with Pel Orvin. No confrontation, just pressure. One ash market shipment disappears, then another. A transport ledger reaches the wrong department. One buried courier corpse leads City Watch officers to a hidden tunnel. Pell reacts exactly as expected. He increases security. Then he personally visits Dorian Sable's townhouse. The dead garden formation activates around him. Rowan watches from 3 streets away through a buried cat skeleton. Pell carries a chain fragment. Dorian does not. Interesting. Mersven arrives next. He carries a bone key from the royal ossuary. 3 roles: fragment, access, structure. That is the cabinet's local cell. The final piece becomes obvious. They are preparing to open the ossuary door, not to retrieve a fragment, to bring one inside. Rowan's earlier assumption reverses. The ossuary is not storage, it is a lock chamber. The cabinet has been assembling the key outside, and now they believe they have enough, almost enough. Because Pell says one sentence before entering the townhouse, the cat skeleton hears it through the floor. The 9th link is still missing. There, their weakness. Rowan immediately thinks of the iron fragment beneath his own palm. A piece that embedded itself into him at Grey March. The cabinet has 8. He carries the 9th. Perfect. Also terrible. That means the entire first seal cannot be reconstructed without him. And someone in the canal chamber already knows his name, so the invitation makes sense now. They do not merely want Rowan to witness the seal opening. They need him. Our necromancer changes the plan again. No longer observe. No longer simply track. Now he needs to make the cabinet believe the 9th fragment is somewhere else. The trap begins with a corpse. Naturally. Rowan returns to Grey March under official cleanup authorization. He finds an old Varkesian officer buried near the original royal corpse site. The dead man still wears a ceremonial chain across his chest. Wrong metal, wrong age. But visually close. Rowan removes one link. Then he takes it to an abandoned forge. Mira watches while he coats the metal in residue scraped from the black fragment jar. You're making a fake. No. She raises an eyebrow. I'm making something that will resonate just enough to look real. That is a fake. Terminology. Not important. The real challenge is authority. The cabinet may test it, so Rowan raises a single old corpse carrying broken crown contamination. Then he places the false link against its sternum. He gives the corpse one command. Kneel. The skeleton obeys. A trace of authority passes through the false metal, tiny, temporary, but real. The link now carries a faint signature, enough for someone expecting to find the 9th piece. Mira stares at it. You just forged necromantic evidence. History has many definitions. That sentence sounded criminal. Probably because it is. The bait enters the ash market 2 days later. Not through Rowan. Through a scavenger who genuinely believes he found something valuable near Grey March. That part matters. A good trap does not simply look convincing. The person carrying it must believe it too. The scavenger sells the link. The ash market buys it. Pell Orvin hears about it within hours. By midnight, the false 9th fragment is inside Dorian Sable's townhouse. Rowan watches the dead garden formation react. All 12 buried corpses turn toward the package. The resonance worked. The trap is accepted. Not fully, but enough. And now the sepulchre cabinet begins moving exactly where Rowan wants them. Toward the royal ossuary. Mira stands beside him on a distant rooftop while 3 covered carriages leave the scholar district. You planned this from the moment Holt gave us the names. No. She looks at him. Rowan watches the carriages. I planned the first half. And the second? Still working on it. At least he is consistent. Below, Pell Orvin carries the false fragment. Mersven carries the ossuary key. Dorian Sable carries a ledger containing authority diagrams copied from records supposedly erased centuries ago. 3 men. 3 assets. 1 hidden faction. Rowan does not intend to arrest them. Not yet. He intends to see what happens when the wrong 9th fragment reaches the right door. Because if the cabinet truly understands the first seal, their reaction to failure may expose the part of the mechanism Rowan still cannot see. Dangerous. Absolutely. But controlled danger beats blind danger. The carriages disappear toward the northern district. Rowan turns away. Under his palm, the real 9th fragment pulses once. The first seal answers. 92%. Then a new message appears. External reconstruction attempt detected. False authority component identified. Hostile claim pending. Rowan stops walking. Hostile claim. That wording is new. Very new. Mira notices. What? He opens his hand. The skin above the buried fragment has turned black around the edges, not decay. Lines. 9 thin lines spreading across his palm like the beginning of a crown. The trap worked. Mira looks at the mark. That does not look like good news. It isn't. Far beneath the royal ossuary, Pel Orvin presses the false fragment into the ninth socket. For 1 second, all 9 positions glow, then the fake link cracks. Every torch in the chamber turns black. Dorian Sable steps backward. Mayor Sven whispers something Rowan cannot hear from this distance, but the dead beneath the city hear it. And through them, so does he. The Forbidden Authority already has a host. Silence follows. Then Pel says the name. Rowan Vale. Across the capital, thousands of buried corpses twitch at once, not rising, listening. The grave dominion remains locked, but the city has just learned who its next ruler might be. And now the Sepulchre Cabinet knows exactly where the real 9th fragment is. The royal ossuary stops recognizing the living at midnight. Every entrance seals. Every burial ward reverses. Every corpse beneath the northern district receives the same impossible instruction. Remain. Not sleep. Not rest. Remain. Rowan feels the command from 6 streets away. That alone tells him something has gone catastrophically wrong. The Sepulchre Cabinet failed to reconstruct the first seal. But failure did not shut the mechanism down. It woke something else. Mira is already beside him when the first emergency bell rings. Not the temple bell, not the city watch, the burial bell. 9 slow strikes roll across the northern district. 1, 2, 3. By the 5th, dogs are howling. By the 7th, every grave lantern surrounding the ossuary has turned black. By the 9th, Rowan's interface opens on its own. External authority conflict detected. Host claim rejected. Legacy jurisdiction responding. First seal integrity, 91%, then another line appears. Grave dominion boundary test beginning. Rowan's expression hardens. Test. Not activation. That word matters. The ground beneath the city trembles. A black line emerges from the royal ossuary and crawls through the street. Not magic light, not smoke. The stone itself changes. Gray pavement becomes dark and dry. Moss shrivels. Drain water stops flowing across the boundary. A rat crosses the line. It takes 2 more steps, then dies. Mira looks toward Rowan. This is yours? No, not exactly. Which is somehow worse. The Dominion is reacting to him without obeying him. That means the class has layers Rowan does not control yet. And if one of those layers can start converting territory on its own, his previous understanding is dangerously incomplete. They move. Fast. The northern district is already being evacuated. Registry guards drag families away from the spreading line. Priests establish sunlight barriers at intersections. The barriers do almost nothing. The dead zone rolls underneath them. No explosion, no violent surge, just quiet replacement. Life weakens. Death becomes easier. Inside each block it crosses. Candles dim. Flowers collapse. Buried insects stop moving, and the corpses beneath family crypts begin turning their heads toward the royal ossuary. Still buried. Still silent. Listening. Rowan notices the pattern before anyone else. The dead are not answering him. They are answering a location. The ossuary itself has become an anchor. That changes his model again. Grave dominion does not start from the necromancer. It starts from a claimed territory. The ruler may be central. The land is the mechanism. Our necromancer reaches the outer barricade. Director Holt is already there. So is Pel Orvin. That is unexpected. Pel is in chains. His registry robes are torn. Blood covers one side of his face. Mayor Sven lies unconscious beside him. Dorian Sable is missing. Holt grabs Rowan before he crosses the black boundary. You do not enter. Rowan looks at the spreading dead zone. That seems temporary. Listen to me. Holt's tone loses every trace of amusement. The ossuary is no longer functioning as a burial site. What is it functioning as? Holt does not answer immediately. That is answer enough. He knows. Or suspects. Rowan looks toward Pel. The examiner refuses to meet his eyes. Interesting. Holt finally speaks. A throne node. Mira frowns. A what? Pel laughs once from the ground. Not because anything is funny, because the situation is already ruined. You told them half the truth for too long. Holt looks down at him. Pel keeps talking. The 9 seals were never just restraints. There it is. Rowan goes still. Pel lifts his head. They were offices. Silence. Not chains. Not locks. Offices. Authority divided into functions. The word changes everything. Pel looks directly at Rowan now. The Forbidden King did not possess one catastrophic class. He held 9 jurisdictions. Mira's face tightens. Holt says nothing. So Pel continues. The first seal governs land, claimed by death. Rowan's palm burns. Grave dominion. Exactly. The second governs memory. Procedural memory. The cemetery keeper. Dead smugglers, remembering routes. Soldiers preserving combat instinct. Rowan understands immediately. He has already touched the edges of the second seal without knowing it. The third governs command. Grave cells. Hierarchy. Delegated authority. Again. something he has already begun reconstructing naturally. Pell smiles weakly. You see it now. Rowan does. And he hates it. The abilities he thought he was discovering independently are not random features of necromancy. They are fragments of a designed system, a government of death, Pell continues. The later jurisdictions dealt with spirits, inheritance, decay, passage, royal dead. Holt steps forward. Enough. Too late. Rowan has already heard enough to understand the scale. 9 seals, 9 domains. His class does not unlock skills in the ordinary sense. It restores sovereign functions. Each seal is a department of death, and the reason modern systems call the Class F is painfully obvious now. F is not a rank. It is the surviving first letter of the erased designation. Forbidden. The ranking interface did not classify Rowan badly. It inherited a censor mark and treated it like a grade. 1,000 years of bureaucracy reduced a world-ending authority to bad paperwork. Talk about a ridiculous historical mistake. Mira looks toward the ossuary. If the first seal governs territory, why is it activating now? Pell's smile disappears. Because we attempted reconstruction. With the wrong fragment, Rowan says. Pell nods. The mechanism rejected the false link and searched for the legitimate host. Another nod. Rowan looks at his palm. The real 9th fragment responds under his skin. The ossuary was never trying to open for the cabinet. It was trying to complete itself through him. Holt finally says what he has avoided saying. The cabinet believed restoring the seals would let us control the forbidden authority. Us. Rowan catches it, not them. Us. Mira catches it too. Her sword leaves its sheath halfway. Holt does not move. Pell laughs again. There. He looks at Rowan. Now he tells you. Our necromancer turns toward Holt. You founded the investigation. Yes. You also knew the cabinet. Yes. You were part of it. Holt holds his gaze. Years ago. That is not denial. Pell leans against the barricade. He was not just part of it. Holt's jaw tightens. Pell keeps going. He designed the collection network. There it is, the deeper layer. Not a random traitor reveal. Not a dramatic father secret. Something much cleaner. Much worse. Director Holt did not discover the sepulchre cabinet from outside. He helped build its modern structure. The ash market routes, the registry fragment purchases, the burial archives, the hidden administrative chain, all of it traces partly back to him. Mira raises her blade fully. Rowan does not. Not yet. Holt looks toward the spreading dead zone. 20 years ago, the registry found evidence that the old seals were degrading. Pell interrupts. So we accelerated collection. To prevent uncontrolled awakening, Holt says. To own it, Pell fires back. Both statements can be true. That is the problem. Rowan studies Holt. You collected fragments because you thought assembled seals were safer than scattered ones. Yes. And when the cabinet realized restored authority could be transferred, Holt's expression changes slightly. There, Rowan has it. They changed objectives. Holt nods. Some did. Dorian Sable. Yes, Pell. Pell says nothing. Enough answer. Maris? Holt looks toward the unconscious custodian. Believed the authority belonged to the state. Different motive. Same catastrophic machine. Rowan recalibrates again. The sepulchre cabinet is not one unified villain faction. It fractured internally. Holt wants containment. Pell wants controlled restoration. Mares wants institutional ownership. Dorian apparently wants something else. And somewhere inside all that bureaucracy, the real host accidentally awakened. Rowan. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. A scream rises from inside the dead zone. Then another. The northern barricade collapses inward. Not physically. The people behind it simply drop. Alive. Unconscious. Their shadows stretch toward the ossuary. Mira steps forward. They're not dead. Rowan feels it too. Their life force is being suppressed, not drained completely. The territory is testing whether it can classify living bodies under death jurisdiction. That matches Holt's story. The Forbidden King tried expanding beyond the dead. Maybe the first seal was never dangerous merely because it killed land. Maybe it was dangerous because eventually everything inside the land became legally dead, even while still breathing. That is catastrophic enough to make gods nervous. Rowan crosses the boundary. Holt grabs his shoulder. Rowan. The black lines on Rowan's palm spread toward his wrist. If this is looking for a host, keeping the host outside seems optimistic. He steps in. Mira follows. Naturally. The temperature drops immediately. Not cold. Stillness. Sound loses distance. Footsteps stop echoing. The entire district feels buried. People lie unconscious in doorways. Their shadows point north. Rowan kneels beside one. Alive. Pulse weak. He activates the boundary command he discovered earlier. Body. Death. Authority. Connection. The structure appears, and this time Rowan sees far more than one line. Thousands. Every person in the district is linked to the ossuary, living. Dead, animals, plants. Even the soil carries a connection. Territory. That is the real mechanism. Grave Dominion is not a summoning spell. It is a jurisdictional network. Anything inside the boundary becomes subject to the ruler's death authority. Rowan finally understands why the ancient Forbidden King was impossible to fight on his own land. An enemy entering the Dominion was not merely entering a battlefield, they were entering someone else's law. That realization unlocks the interface. Not fully, just enough. Dormant function partially interpreted. Grave Dominion. Function. Establish death jurisdiction over designated territory. Current status. Locked. Emergency host privileges available. Restriction. First seal incomplete. Emergency privileges. Useful words. Dangerous words. Rowan accepts. Mira sees the black lines erupt across his arm. What did you do? Something temporary. That answer is getting worse every time. The district changes. For 1 second, Rowan feels everything. Every corpse, every dying root, every sleeping rat, every person whose heartbeat is being pushed towards silence. Too much. Far too much. His knees nearly buckle. He cuts the connection immediately. Not enough time to control the Dominion. Enough to locate its anchor. Royal Ossuary. Lowest level. Not the sealed door they found before. Below that, there is another chamber. Holt never mentioned it. Pell probably knows. Dorian almost certainly does. Rowan stands. Underground. Mira follows. They reach the ossuary through a side entrance where every ward has failed. Inside, noble corpses remain in their crypts. But each skeleton is facing downward. Again, location authority. Not host authority. The stairs descend beyond the mapped levels, past the iron door, past the chamber where the cabinet attempted reconstruction. The false 9th fragment lies shattered on the floor. 8 real fragments have fused into a circular mechanism. The 9th socket is empty. Rowan's hand burns in response. Then footsteps sound below. Dorian Sable appears. Finally. No dramatic robe, no skull staff. He looks like what he is. A scholar. Clean coat. Ink on 2 fingers. A ledger under 1 arm. Behind him stands no army. Only 1 corpse. The headless pre-Dominion custodian from Rowan's reassessment. So that body disappeared from the registry. Now Rowan knows why. Dorian looks almost relieved. The host arrives. Mira raises her sword. Dorian ignores her. He looks only at Rowan. Do you know why the gods approved the sealing? Interesting opening. Rowan says nothing. Dorian turns toward the lower chamber. Because the Forbidden King was close to proving something they could not allow. Holt reaches the chamber behind them. Pell is not with him. Good. Dorian smiles. You came too, Director. Holt's expression is ice. Stop the boundary. I can't. That is genuine. Rowan hears it immediately. Dorian started this. He does not control it anymore. What was he proving? Mira asks. Dorian looks toward her. That death is not divine property. Silence. There. The missing layer. The gods. Not worship. Not random cosmic flavor. Structure. According to Dorian's surviving records, resurrection, soul passage, burial blessing, and afterlife judgment were historically monopolized by divine systems. Priests did not simply heal souls. They processed them. Temples registered the dead. Divine marks determined passage. The ancient forbidden authority broke that monopoly. A grave dominion could intercept the dead before divine collection. Memory could be retained. Spirits could be reassigned. Royal corpses could preserve sovereignty after death. Enough territory under one forbidden ruler could create an afterlife independent of the gods. Rowan looks at the 8 fused fragments. Now the 1,000-year sealing makes sense. The class was catastrophic, but not merely because it raised armies. It threatened the ownership structure of death itself. Dorian opens his ledger. Old diagrams cover the pages. 9 seals surrounding a central crown. Above the crown are shapes representing divine gates. Below them, a second system. Human-built. The Forbidden King was building a mortal afterlife. Mira lowers her blade by 1 inch. Not trust. Shock. Dorian continues. No divine judgment. No temple tithe. No god deciding which soul ascends, reincarnates, or disappears. Holt steps forward. And the price was dead continents. Dorian's expression hardens. The surviving records were written by the victors. There. Uncertainty. Important. Rowan cannot assume either version is complete. The king may have been liberator, tyrant, both. Neither. What matters now is mechanism. The black boundary keeps expanding. Rowan looks at the fused chain. How do we stop it? Dorian closes the ledger. Complete the first seal. Holt snaps. No. Dorian looks at him. Then let the city become a dead jurisdiction without a ruler. Not ideal. Rowan studies the mechanism. Completing the seal may unlock grave dominion. Leaving it incomplete is already allowing an uncontrolled version to spread. Choice between controlled catastrophe and uncontrolled catastrophe. Wonderful. He approaches the ninth socket. Mira grabs his sleeve. Rowan. He looks at her. If I lose control, cut the connection. How? He places her hand over the black lines on his wrist. Her Grave Sentinel energy reacts immediately. Silver light appears between the marks. Those lines are the authority route. Mira understands. If they spread past your shoulder, break them. That could kill you. Probably. She clearly hates this plan, which makes two of them. Rowan presses his palm against the mechanism. The real ninth fragment tears free from beneath his skin. Pain slices through his hand. Black metal emerges without blood. It floats, turns, then clicks into the empty socket. The entire capital stops. Not metaphorically. Every clock, every carriage horse, every flying bird, every human breath inside the dead zone freezes for one impossible instant. The first seal fractures. Not completely. Enough. A sound like a mountain cracking rolls beneath the city. Rowan's interface disappears, then returns with no rank, no modern formatting, only ancient words. First jurisdiction restored. Grave Dominion partial authority. Host recognized. Rowan Vale. One command becomes available. Claim. Our necromancer looks at the unconscious people above, the dead soil, the frozen shadows, the listening corpses. Then he understands the trap inside the word. Claiming the district would give him control. It would also confirm the territory as dead jurisdiction. No. Wrong solution. He chooses something the system does not offer. Release. Nothing happens. Dorian stares. That command doesn't exist. Then it should. Rowan pushes against the authority. The first seal resists. Not hostile. Literal. It understands claims. Borders. Ownership. Not mercy. So Rowan reframes the command. Not release. Relinquish. He targets the boundary itself. He gives up jurisdiction over every living body. The system reacts. New legal distinction detected. Living exclusion requested. Legacy rule conflict. Rowan grits his teeth. Exclude them. The entire mechanism convulses. Black lines race up his arm. Mira grabs his wrist. Silver Grave Sentinel energy cuts through 2 lines before they reach his shoulder. Rowan holds the rest. The Dominion updates. 1 living person wakes. Then 10. Then hundreds. Shadows return beneath their bodies. The black boundary stops spreading. Grass does not recover. Dead insects remain dead. But living people are no longer being dragged under death authority. A new line appears. Grave Dominion law amended. Living entities excluded unless marked by death claim. Rowan stares. He just changed the rule. Not cast a spell. Changed jurisdiction. That is far more dangerous. And far more useful. Dorian looks at him like he has witnessed scripture being rewritten. Holt looks terrified. Mira simply keeps holding Rowan's wrist until the black lines retreat. Above them, the northern district breathes again. The first seal remains partially fractured. Not open. Not closed. Something in between. The dead zone remains around the ossuary. Smaller now. Stable. A permanent scar. Rowan looks at Dorian. You wanted this. Dorian shakes his head slowly. I wanted proof. You got it. Yes. His eyes move toward the ancient mechanism, and now so did they. Rowan follows his gaze upward. Far above the city, clouds have formed in a perfect circle, not storm clouds. White, bright. 9 enormous rays of light descend through them without touching the ground. Temple bells across the capital begin ringing by themselves. Every priest in the city drops to their knees. Mira looks upward. What is that? Dorian answers quietly. Attention. For the first time since Rowan awakened, the class interface does not respond. Something else does. A symbol appears above the royal ossuary, not inside his mind. In the sky, an enormous golden eye opens between the clouds. Then another. Then a third. None look at the city. None look at the registry. All of them look directly at Rowan. 1,000 years ago, the Forbidden Authority was sealed because the gods feared what it could become. Now the first jurisdiction has moved again, and the gods have just noticed its new host. The gods do not attack. That is the first problem. 3 enormous golden eyes remain open above the royal ossuary, watching Rowan through a ring of white clouds. No lightning falls. No divine army descends. No booming voice declares judgment. They simply observe. And somehow, that is worse. Because if something powerful enough to turn every priest in the capital toward the sky chooses not to act immediately, Rowan can think of only 2 explanations. Either it cannot, or it is waiting to see what he does next. Our necromancer dislikes both possibilities. Around him, the first jurisdiction settles. The northern district is alive again. People wake in streets and houses. Temple healers rush across the boundary to treat those who collapsed. But the ground within 300 yards of the royal ossuary remains permanently changed. Grass is gray, trees are bare, insects avoid the area, and every corpse buried inside that radius is connected to Rowan by a thread he can feel without summoning anything. Not control. Recognition. His territory knows him. Rowan closes his eyes. Hundreds of dead. No, thousands. The ossuary extends deeper than the public records claim. Far deeper. He senses crypts beneath crypts, burial chambers underneath modern foundations, and entire layers of remains dating back before the Dominion existed. Every one of them sits quietly inside the partial grave Dominion, waiting. Rowan opens his eyes. He gives none of them an order. Good first policy. Mira releases his wrist only when the final black authority line retreats below his elbow. The silver glow around her blade fades. You're still you? Rowan considers the question. I think so. That is not reassuring. It wasn't intended to be. Director Holt approaches the seal mechanism. The 8 reconstructed chain fragments and Rowan's 9th piece have fused into a black ring. The socket no longer exists. There is no obvious way to remove them again. Dorian Sable looks almost reverent. Holt looks like he wants to destroy the entire chamber. Rowan agrees with neither reaction. He wants information. Who are they? He points upward. Nobody needs clarification. Dorian answers first. The Divine Synod called them the 3 witnesses. Names. Dorian hesitates. Those records were destroyed. Holt cuts in. Not all of them. Interesting. Dorian turns. So does Rowan. Holt stares at the ceiling. The temples preserved fragments privately. The registry obtained copies decades ago. Of course you did, Mira says. Holt ignores the tone. The witnesses are not individual gods in the ordinary sense. They are offices within the divine passage system. Offices again. Rowan almost laughs. Apparently the universe is run by administrators all the way up. Holt continues. One records death. One judges passage. One enforces divine claim. Rowan looks toward the 3 golden eyes. Record, judge, enforce, a bureaucracy, exactly like the 9 forbidden jurisdictions. Except older, or at least victorious. That parallel matters. The ancient forbidden system may not have invented authority over death. It copied the structure used by the gods. Or built a competing version. Dorian seems to reach the same thought. The king wasn't creating random powers. No, Rowan says. He was building an alternative institution. Silence. That is the dangerous idea. Not undead armies. Not resurrection, competition. The divine system says every dead soul passes upward through divine jurisdiction. The forbidden system says death can be governed below. 2 governments claiming the same population. No wonder there was a war. The golden eye on the left closes, then the right. The central eye remains. A beam of light descends. It does not strike Rowan. It touches the black boundary surrounding the ossuary. The moment divine light enters the grave dominion, Rowan feels an intrusion, not pain, a legal challenge. The sensation is absurdly precise. Foreign authority requesting access. His interface reacts. Divine claim detected. Jurisdiction conflict. Living entities. Excluded. Dead entities. Contested. The beam reaches the nearest crypt. A noble skeleton inside begins glowing gold. Rowan feels something pulling upward. The corpse itself remains still. Something else is being extracted. Memory? Spirit? He cannot tell. Mira can. Soul residue. Her eyes shine silver. It's pulling the dead through. Dorian whispers. The witness is testing whether your dominion can intercept passage. Of course it is. Rowan does not stop it. Mira looks at him sharply. He raises one hand. Wait. 1 corpse. Controlled test. If he reacts without understanding the mechanism, he learns nothing. The golden beam intensifies. The soul residue rises from the crypt. The moment it reaches the boundary of Rowan's territory, something strange happens. The grave dominion asks him a question. Not in words. In authority. Release? Retain? 2 options. That is all. Rowan chooses release. The residue passes through. The golden beam disappears. The central eye closes. Clouds begin breaking apart. No attack. No judgment, just a test. Rowan stores that away. The gods can reach into his territory, but only because he allowed the claim. Maybe. One experiment is not proof. Still, useful. Dorian looks disappointed. You let it go. It wasn't mine. That distinction did not exist under the old Dominion. Rowan turns toward him. It does now. The amended law responds faintly. Living entities excluded unless marked by death claim. Something else appears beneath it. Unclaimed dead passage, host discretion. There. Another rule. Not one Rowan created. One that became visible because the situation required it. The system is not a skill tree. It is a legal code. And Rowan has inherited administrative access to a 1,000-year-old death government with most of the manual missing. Fantastic. Holt orders the chamber evacuated. This time Rowan agrees. The first jurisdiction is stable. The gods have withdrawn. Dorian is placed under registry custody. Mare's Ven remains unconscious. Pel Orvin has disappeared. That last part becomes important approximately 12 minutes later. A registry guard runs into the ossuary. Pel escaped during the divine manifestation. Not alone. 3 guards helped him. 2 registry archive rooms have been emptied, and 1 prisoner transport is missing. Holt closes his eyes. Rowan asks the obvious question. What was in the transport? Holt does not answer quickly enough. Rowan already knows he will hate it. A corpse. What corpse? The crowned remains from Grey March. Of course. The royal corpse Rowan destroyed was not completely destroyed. Registry teams recovered the skull and spinal core after the battle. Holt kept them hidden for study. Pel now has them. Rowan looks at him. You kept a royal corpse tied to the forbidden authority inside the capital. Holt's expression does not change. Yes, good planning. Mira looks away, possibly to hide a reaction. Holt deserves that one, but the theft creates a larger problem. Pel knows the First Seal governs territory. He knows Rowan is the host, and he now possesses a royal corpse that once served the old authority. Rowan remembers the system notification from Grey March. Unauthorized royal corpse detected. Royal corpse subdued. The word unauthorized suddenly matters more than royal. If royal dead require special authorization inside the forbidden system, Pel may be trying to access a different jurisdiction. Maybe the one he mentioned earlier, royal dead, one of the later seals. Rowan turns to Dorian. Which seal governs royal corpses? Dorian says nothing. Holt answers. 7th. Too far. Good. That means Pel cannot simply unlock it. Probably. Rowan has learned to distrust that word. He leaves the ossuary before dawn. The northern district remains closed. His partial dominion remains centered there whether he likes it or not. For the first time, Rowan discovers a limitation that feels almost comforting. He cannot move it. The territory is anchored to the restored First Seal mechanism. If Rowan walks away, the dominion stays. His connection weakens with distance but does not disappear. That means he cannot accidentally turn every place he visits into claimed land. Not yet. The battlefield dead zones were incomplete authority leakage. This is different, structured, bounded, stable, good. Mostly. By midday, Rowan returns to his apartment. He has slept perhaps 4 hours in 2 days. Mira tells him to rest. Rowan says he will, then immediately opens his notebook. She takes it away. He stares at her. She stares back. Grave Sentinel versus Forbidden Necromancer. Apparently, this is the battle she chooses. You need sleep. Pel has a royal corpse. Pel will still have it in 4 hours. That is an assumption. So is believing you'll make good decisions while half-conscious. Rowan considers summoning a dead rat to steal the notebook. Mira places her sword on top of it. Fine. He sleeps. For 3 hours and 27 minutes. Progress. When Rowan wakes, something has changed. Not in the city. In his class, the modern interface is back. Necromancer Class F still appears at the top, but underneath it is a second designation, First Jurisdiction Holder. Grave Dominion Partial. 3 functions are now accessible. Territory Sense. Burial Recognition. Grave Cell Registration. The third catches his attention. He tests it outside the capital that afternoon. Same abandoned quarry. 4 skeletons. 1 anchor. 3 units. He forms the familiar grave cell. Then, instead of maintaining the command himself, he registers the formation. The first jurisdiction responds. Grave cell recognized. Territorial anchor unavailable. Temporary autonomous duration, 30 minutes. Rowan steps away. The skeletons continue functioning. No active concentration. No constant authority drain. 30 minutes later, they collapse exactly when expected. Useful. Inside his actual dominion, the duration may be indefinite. That means the first seal and third seal functions overlap. Territory supports command. Command structures territory. The jurisdictions were designed to interlock, which means unlocking one in isolation may never reveal its full capability. Rowan hates how elegant the system is. Elegant systems scale well. Catastrophic elegant systems scale catastrophically well. He begins testing burial recognition next. This one is stranger. Inside the Grave Dominion, Rowan can identify any recognized burial without raising the corpse. Name, if preserved. Approximate age. Cause of death, sometimes. Legal burial status. And something called allegiance. Most show none. Some noble remains show family. Old soldiers show military banners. Then Rowan finds 1 corpse beneath the ossuary whose allegiance field reads, Forbidden Throne. He freezes. The corpse lies nearly 200 feet below the lowest mapped chamber. Mira notices his expression. What? There's someone under the ossuary. There are thousands of people under the ossuary. This one works for me. That gets her attention. Not Rowan personally. He knows that. The corpse recognizes the office he now holds. Important distinction. They return to the ossuary that evening with Holt. Rowan uses territory sense to guide them. No excavation through public crypts. The route goes through a collapsed maintenance shaft behind the first seal chamber. Down. Then farther down. The architecture becomes ancient again. Black stone. No mortar. 9-line symbols carved into every arch. At the bottom waits a room that does not appear on any registry plan. One sarcophagus. No treasure. No inscription except a title. First Warden. Dorian never mentioned this. Holt claims he did not know it existed. Rowan believes him. Mostly. Mira examines the sarcophagus. No corruption. Rowan feels silencio. Recognition. The corpse inside knows the first jurisdiction is active. It has been waiting. He does not open the coffin manually. He gives the smallest possible command. Report. The lid moves. Not violently, it slides aside. A skeleton sits up. Black ceremonial armor covers its body. No weapon. No crown. Its eye sockets contain faint blue fire. Mira raises her sword. The first warden ignores her. It climbs from the sarcophagus, then kneels before Rowan. No tremor, no environmental drain, no seal degradation. Because Rowan did not summon it. It was already part of the jurisdiction. That is new. The skeleton speaks. Actual speech. Dry. Quiet. First authority restored. Rowan says nothing for a moment, then asks the most useful question available. Who are you? Warden Cale Arden. A name, finally. Not a mysterious voice. Not an unnamed ancient shadow. A specific person. Function? Boundary administration. Of course. An undead bureaucrat. Rowan has somehow inherited one. Mira lowers her blade slightly. Holt looks like every historical theory he ever had is rearranging itself. Rowan continues. Who was the Forbidden King? Cale's blue eyes remain fixed on him. Which one? Silence. That is not the answer anyone expects. Holt steps forward. There was more than one? 9. Rowan's entire model breaks. 9 seals. 9 jurisdictions. He assumed one king divided into 9 powers. Wrong. Again, Cale explains with the patience of someone who has been dead for a millennium and therefore has no reason to hurry. The Forbidden King was not originally a person. It was an office. 9 rulers held 9 death jurisdictions. 1 governed territory. 1 memory. 1 command. 1 spirits. 1 inheritance. 1 decay. 1 royal dead. 1 passage. And 1 final jurisdiction Cale refuses to name. Not because he wants to be mysterious, because his warden authority literally does not contain access to that information. Specific limitation. Good. Rowan trusts limitations more than dramatic secrecy. The 9 rulers formed the Sepulchral Concord, a mortal institution managing death independently of divine temples. For centuries, the system functioned. Then one ruler began absorbing the other jurisdictions. The first king. The holder of grave dominion. Rowan's predecessor. That man eventually accumulated 8 authorities. He attempted to take the 9th. The result became the War of 9 Crowns. So the gods did not seal 9 pieces of one innocent ruler because they feared competition. They helped the remaining mortal factions stop a forbidden king who was centralizing every jurisdiction into himself. Dorian had half the truth. Holt had another half. Neither had the original structure. Rowan asks the question that matters. What happened to the first king? Cale answers immediately. Executed. By the gods? No. The warden looks directly at Rowan. By his companion. Mira goes completely still. Rowan does too. Not because he assumes history will repeat itself, because the parallel is impossible to ignore. First jurisdiction holder. Grave Sentinel companion. Cale turns toward Mira. Sentinel authority recognized. Her face changes. What? Grave Sentinels were created by the Concord. Holt looks stunned. Modern doctrine says Grave Sentinels are temple-derived classes. Cale corrects that too. They were originally fail-safes. Human companions assigned to forbidden rulers. Their purpose was not merely fighting corrupted spirits. They could sever authority lines if a jurisdiction holder exceeded legal boundaries. That explains Mira's ability to cut Rowan's black lines. It was never a lucky interaction. Her class was designed for it. Rowan looks at her. Mira looks back. Neither says anything. They do not need to. The companion evolution finally makes sense. Every time Rowan's authority grows, Mira's Grave Sentinel functions respond because their classes were built as paired mechanisms. Ruler. Failsafe. Not master and servant. Checks and balances, KL continues. The first king removed his sentinel. How? Killed her. That answer lands hard. 3 days later, he began absorbing the remaining jurisdictions. There it is. A concrete historical failure. Not destiny, not prophecy, A decision. Rowan writes it down. Mira notices. You're taking notes now? Yes. About the ancient tyrant who murdered his companion? Yes. Anything useful? Rowan closes the notebook. Don't murder you. Mira stares at him. Holt turns away. KL, being dead, has no visible reaction. Probably for the best. The humor lasts approximately 5 seconds. Then KL gives them the next problem. The first seal is incomplete. Rowan already knows. What's missing? Recognition by the dead under jurisdiction. That sounds dangerous. How many? For full authority? KL looks upward. Every dead subject within the boundary. Thousands. Rowan immediately rejects the idea of forcing recognition. KL confirms he does not need to. A jurisdiction can gain legitimacy 3 ways: conquest, consent. The old first king favored the first. Rowan asks about the third. KL explains. The dead can recognize a ruler through fulfilled burial obligations. Protect graves. Resolve disturbed remains. Return stolen bodies. Preserve names. Honor valid death claims. Administrative work. Our necromancer blinks. So he can strengthen the most catastrophic necromantic territory in history by doing cemetery maintenance. Apparently, yes. That may be the strangest thing his class has revealed so far. Also, the safest. Rowan chooses consent. Immediately. No debate. Over the next 2 weeks, the Northern District witnesses something nobody expected from the terrifying F-class necromancer responsible for its dead zone. He fixes graves, hundreds of them. Stolen remains recovered from Ash Market warehouses are returned. Misidentified soldiers receive their names. Family crypts damaged during the boundary event are repaired. Unregistered poorhouse corpses are cataloged instead of dumped. Rowan uses burial recognition to reconnect bodies with records. Mira uses Grave Sentinel Sight to verify spiritual stability. Holt quietly forces the registry to provide resources. The first warden manages the ancient crypt layers below. No armies, no spectacular spells. Just work, and slowly the dominion changes, not visually. The grass stays gray, the soil remains cold, but the pressure disappears. People can enter without feeling sick. Temple healers report that spirits inside the district are calmer than before. Families begin visiting graves again. Then the first recognition arrives. An old soldier's skeleton receives its restored nameplate. Rowan feels a tiny click through the territory. Subject recognition granted. Then another. A mother's remains returned to the correct family crypt. Recognition granted. Then 12 unidentified laborers buried under a collapsed warehouse finally receive proper markers. 12 more. The number grows. Not through conquest, through administration. Mira watches Rowan update the burial ledger late one evening. You realize you're becoming popular with dead people. Finally found my demographic. She almost smiles. Almost. Then every registered grave cell in the district turns east. All at once. Rowan stands. That is not his command. Kale emerges from the lower crypt entrance. Blue fire burns brighter in his eyes. Royal authority approaching. 7th jurisdiction. Rowan moves to the eastern boundary. Mira follows. Holt is summoned. The city watch establishes distance. No civilians nearby. Good. A wagon appears at the end of the street. 1 horse, no driver. On the wagon sits the reconstructed royal corpse from Grey March. Its skull has been reattached. Black chains hold the spine together. Pel Orvin walks beside it. Alone. No army, no guards. He stops outside the grave dominion. Smart. The royal corpse cannot cross without Rowan's permission. Pel knows enough to understand territorial law now. He raises both hands. I'm not here to fight. Mira does not lower her sword. Rowan says nothing. Pel gestures toward the corpse. I brought you a message. From? The 7th warden. Concrete. Another warden exists. That changes things. Pel removes a metal cylinder from the corpse's rib cage. He places it on the ground and steps away. Rowan does not retrieve it. KL does. The first warden crosses the boundary, picks up the cylinder, and returns. No reaction. Safe enough. Inside is a strip of preserved black parchment. 1 sentence. The 7th jurisdiction has no ruler. Beneath it is a location. Crownfall Catacomb, 180 miles east of the capital. Rowan looks at KL. Do you know it? Yes. What is there? The throne node of royal death. Pel answers from outside the boundary. And Dorian Sable is already going there. Of course he is. Rowan looks toward him. Why tell me? Pel's expression is tired now. No fanatic smile. No smug examiner act. The cabinet wanted control. He glances toward the reconstructed royal corpse. Dorian wants restoration. Difference? He believes all 9 jurisdictions need rulers again. Rowan looks at the message. And you? Pel laughs once. I've seen what one partial jurisdiction did to a city block. Fair. Now I want fewer mistakes. Not redemption, not trust. just recalculation. Rowan can work with recalculation. He asks one more question. Why did the 7th Warden contact me? KL answers before Pel can. Because an empty jurisdiction is vulnerable. To what? The 1st Warden turns his skull toward the sky. The answer becomes obvious. Divine claim. If the mortal death offices remain empty, the gods retain uncontested authority. If Dorian installs a ruler, the old system begins returning. If Rowan takes the jurisdiction himself, no. That road has already been walked. 8 authorities. 1 king. War. Rowan will not repeat it, so a third option is needed. Find the 7th Warden, prevent Dorian from forcing a ruler, prevent divine seizure, and absolutely do not absorb the jurisdiction himself. Simple, terrible, manageable. Our necromancer looks toward Mira. She already knows. We're going east. Yes. To an ancient royal death throne. Yes. While 3 gods are watching you. Probably more than 3. She sighs. I preferred the dead rats. Honestly, so did he. The next morning, Rowan leaves the capital for Crownfall Catacomb. He does not bring an undead army. Only 1 registered grave cell. 4 old soldiers. KL remains behind to administer the first jurisdiction. That matters. For the first time, Rowan entrusts part of his authority to someone else. Not because he lacks control. Because he refuses to become the single point holding everything. Mira rides beside him. Pel travels separately under Holt's supervision. No one trusts anyone completely. Good. Trust is not required for aligned incentives. As the capital disappears behind them, Rowan feels thousands of dead subjects within the grave dominion. Not kneeling, not enslaved. Simply recognized. The first seal stabilizes at 89%. For the first time since awakening, its degradation stops. Consent does what force could not. It gives the jurisdiction structure. Rowan looks east. Somewhere beneath Crownfall, Catacomb waits an empty throne governing royal death. Dorian is heading toward it. A 7th Warden is asking for help. And the gods now know exactly which mortal authority has started functioning again. Above the eastern horizon, a single golden point appears between the clouds. Not an eye, a star. It follows Rowan's road. The divine system is watching. But back beneath the royal ossuary, Kyle Arden turns toward a sealed corridor Rowan has never entered. At the end stands a door bearing the symbol of the 2nd jurisdiction, memory. For 1 second, someone knocks from the other side. 3 times, Kale does not open it. He records the exact time in the burial ledger. Then, inside Crownfall Catacomb, 180 miles away, another ancient figure opens blue-burning eyes. The 7th Warden rises from beside an empty stone throne. At his feet lies a crown wrapped in 9 black chains. And carved into the throne is a warning meant for whoever arrives next. No ruler may hold 2 crowns. Rowan is coming. Dorian is already there. And this time, the problem is not whether the dead will obey. It is deciding who has the right to command them at all. Crownfall Catacomb has no entrance above ground. That would be too convenient. Instead, Rowan finds an abandoned royal highway ending at a cliff where the road simply stops. No bridge, no ruins, no visible tomb. Just 300 feet of empty air and a valley filled with dead trees. Pel Orvin checks the old map twice. This is the location. Mira looks over the cliff. Your map appears to disagree with reality. Pel folds it. The catacomb predates the valley. Rowan studies the rock beneath their boots. Then he feels it. Royal dead. Not 1. Hundreds, deep below. His burial recognition cannot identify them from this distance. But every presence carries the same unusual pressure. Status. Titles. Inherited claims. People who remained important even after dying. The 7th jurisdiction is definitely here. The question is how to reach it. Our necromancer places 1 hand against the ground. No mass summon. No dramatic resurrection. Just a simple command to the nearest buried corpse. Show the road. Something underneath them moves. A skeletal hand emerges 20 yards away, then another farther down the slope, then a third. One after another, ancient hands rise from the earth in a line. Not attacking, pointing. Pel stares. You're using corpses as markers. They already knew the route. There, part 2 pays off. Weeks ago, Rowan discovered that dead bodies preserve routines, paths, and procedural memory. Back then, he used dead smugglers to find hidden tunnels. Now the same principle is leading him into a royal burial complex erased from every modern map. Same mechanism, much larger stakes. The line ends beside a dead cedar. Mira touches the trunk. Hollow. Pel finds no latch. Rowan does not search for one. He raises the skeleton buried beneath the tree. A former royal road warden. Old uniform, broken jaw, still wearing a bronze key. The corpse walks directly toward the cliff, then steps off. Pel's face changes. Mira leans over the edge. The skeleton does not fall. Its foot rests on something invisible. A bridge. Illusion ward. Of course. Rowan follows. The hidden bridge reveals itself beneath each step, black stone appearing only when touched. Far below, dead trees fill the valley like frozen veins. Halfway across, Rowan notices the golden star in the sky has stopped moving. It hangs directly above Crownfall, watching. The divine system knows where they are. Good, at least everyone is invited. The bridge ends inside the cliff. A pair of enormous doors waits there. 7 crowns are carved across the surface. 6 broken. 1 intact. Above them is the warning Kale described. No ruler may hold 2 crowns. Pell reads it silently, then looks at Rowan. You understand what that means? Yes. You already hold the first. Yes. So if the 7th throne chooses you, it won't. Pell almost laughs. You sound confident. I'm making it a policy. Mira looks at him. A policy. Better than improvising during an ancient succession crisis. Hard to argue with that. The doors open before anyone touches them. Blue fire ignites inside. 1 torch. Then another. Then hundreds. Crownfall catacomb wakes. The first hall is enormous. Stone kings sit along both walls. Not statues. Corpses. Mummified rulers wearing crowns from kingdoms that no longer exist. Some are human. Some definitely are not. Each sits upright with hands folded over old weapons. None move. Yet, Rowan's first jurisdiction reacts immediately. Foreign sovereign dead detected. Jurisdiction overlap unavailable. Royal death authority required. Good. His class cannot casually command them. That is reassuring. For approximately 4 seconds, then the first king opens his eyes. Gold light burns inside the sockets, not blue. Gold. Mira draws her blade. Pell whispers. Divine claim. The corpse stands. Then another, then 20. The golden star above Crownfall shines through solid stone. A beam penetrates the catacomb ceiling without damaging it. Every royal corpse touched by that light rises. Rowan watches the mechanism. The gods are not summoning them. They are claiming passage rights over sovereign dead whose local jurisdiction has no ruler. Empty office. Uncontested claim. Exactly what KL warned about. The first king draws a rusted sword. Mira moves. The blade crashes against hers hard enough to split the floor. She slides backward. Strong. Very strong. Rowan calls his grave cell. 4 old soldiers emerge from the portable burial cases fixed beneath their wagon gear. 1 anchor. 3 units. Compared with hundreds of royal corpses, it looks almost insulting. Pell stares at him. That's your force? For now. The kings advance. The grave cell meets them. And gets absolutely destroyed. 1 royal corpse swings an axe. 2 skeletons disappear into the wall. Another crushes the anchor under 1 boot. Formation broken. Exactly as Rowan expects. Stage 1. Take the hit. Learn. Our necromancer retreats while Mira blocks another attack. Royal corpses do not fight like ordinary undead. They preserve authority-linked habits. 1 king commands nearby corpses simply by raising his sword. Another strengthens old armor around him. A queen with a shattered crown causes every blade inside 20 feet to turn toward her enemies. These are not individual fighters. They carry remnants of governance, tiny pieces of the 7th jurisdiction. Rowan watches, reads, adjusts. The divine light is not controlling them equally. Each corpse has 1 golden line running upward. Foreign authority, connection. There it is. The same structure Rowan first sees in Archive Room 6. Body, death, authority, connection. Part 3. Small skill, now scaled up. Mira catches Rowan's expression. You see the lines. Yes. How many? He looks across the hall. Too many. Useful number. Hundreds. Less useful. 1 royal corpse lunges. Mira ducks. Rowan places his hand on the dead king's breastplate as it passes. Boundary command. The world narrows. Corpse. Divine claim. Golden tether. He grabs the connection. Back in the archive, pulling 1 shadow into 1 body nearly overwhelmed him. Now he tries something much more reckless. He does not break the line. He redirects its legal destination. The first jurisdiction cannot claim the king. Wrong office. But Grave Dominion can deny foreign authority inside claimed land. Unfortunately, Crownfall is not his land, so Rowan changes the question. Whose land is it? The 7th throne node. Empty. Unclaimed. Not divine. Not yet. That means the gods are accessing sovereign dead through an administrative vacancy. Our necromancer smiles faintly. There is the weakness. He releases the corpse and shouts 1 word. Vacancy. Pell looks confused. Mira does not. She has learned that when Rowan says something bizarre during combat, it usually means somebody else is about to have a terrible day. He points toward the throne chamber deeper inside. The gods are acting because nobody occupies the office. Pell understands. So, fill it. No. Rowan looks toward him. Close it. Different thing. Very different. They move deeper. The royal dead pursue. Mira takes the front. Pell uses registry seals to delay 2 side passages. Rowan rebuilds his grave cell while running. New anchor. 3 surviving soldiers from burial cases. Registered autonomy. This time he gives the anchor only one objective. Protect the route behind Mira. Then he releases active control. The formation keeps moving independently. Part 2 again. Autonomous grave cell. Tiny experiment in a quarry. Now functioning inside a catastrophic royal necropolis while Rowan focuses elsewhere. Setup becomes payoff, exactly as planned. Or at least as close to planned as this disaster gets. The catacomb opens into a circular chamber. 7 throne alcoves surround one central floor. 6 are empty. The 7th holds a black stone throne. Beside it stands the 7th warden, tall skeletal figure, dark green ceremonial armor. A crown-shaped blade rests against the floor. Blue fire burns in both eyes. Dorian Sable stands before him. Alive, uninjured, and surrounded by 12 living scholars wearing sepulture cabinet insignia. Not generic cultists, archive officials, genealogy clerks, royal inheritance specialists. Exactly the people needed to manipulate claims over dead monarchs. Dorian has assembled a legal team for necromantic succession. Honestly, Rowan almost respects the commitment. The 7th warden sees him. First holder. Rowan stops. Warden. Dorian turns. Relief crosses his face. You came. That seems to disappoint everyone else. Dorian looks toward the golden light bleeding through the ceiling. You see the problem. Yes. Then you understand why the 7th jurisdiction needs a ruler. No. Dorian's expression tightens. There are already hundreds under divine claim. That proves it needs administration. Rowan looks at the throne. Not a king. The 7th warden raises his head slightly. Interesting reaction. Dorian catches it too. There is no administrative mode without a crown. According to whose records? Silence. Rowan looks toward the warden. Can the jurisdiction operate without transferring sovereignty? The warden does not answer immediately. Dorian steps between them. He cannot rewrite the office. Rowan's eyes narrow. I didn't ask you. The 7th warden finally speaks. Royal death may be held by crown, council, or custodial regency. Everything stops. Dorian's face goes completely still. There it is. Missing information. The old system had alternatives. Kings were never mandatory. Dorian's entire restoration plan is based on incomplete records. Rowan thinks back to the deeper reveal at the ossuary. The ancient forbidden authority was not one supernatural monarch. It was an institution. That information changes the battle right now. Concrete application. Instead of choosing between Dorian's new king and divine seizure, Rowan can restore governance without giving one person the crown. He immediately asks, requirements for regency? 3 recognized custodians. The warden looks toward Dorian. 1 administrator of royal record, then Pell. 1 custodian of death registry, then Mira. 1 sentinel with severance authority. Pell blinks. Mira looks deeply unimpressed by being volunteered by an ancient corpse. Dorian realizes the same thing Rowan does. The people necessary are already in the room. That is why the 7th warden summoned them. Not Rowan alone. All functions. Dorian steps toward the throne. No. There it is. His real line. He does not merely want restoration. He wants centralized restoration. A clean hierarchy. 1 ruler per office. Eventually, perhaps, 1 system under 1 crown. The old mistake wearing scholarly clothes. Dorian pulls a black chain from inside his coat. The royal corpses outside scream. Every golden tether shakes. His cabinet scholars move simultaneously. Inheritance registrars cut their palms over old royal seals. Genealogists unfold preserved bloodline records. Archive clerks activate pre-Dominion scripts. They are not casting spells. They are constructing a claim. Dorian points the chain toward the empty throne. Recognize succession. The catacomb detonates. Black authority floods the chamber. The 7th warden is forced to one knee. Pell gets thrown backward. Rowan takes the blast directly. His grave dominion reacts. First jurisdiction conflict. Foreign crown claim detected. Unauthorized accumulation risk. Of course, Dorian is not trying to become 7th king himself. He is trying to make Rowan inherit it. Mira realizes it first. Rowan. Black chains wrap around his arm. The throne answers his existing authority. First holder detected. Compatible sovereign structure identified. Succession priority elevated. No ruler may hold 2 crowns. The warning was not simply advice. It was a failsafe, and Dorian is forcing Rowan across it. If Rowan inherits the 7th, he becomes the first person in 1,000 years to hold multiple jurisdictions. The same path as the tyrant before him, Dorian shouts over the shaking chamber. 1 ruler can oppose the synod. There. His motive. Clear. Specific. Terrible. The gods centralize authority. So Dorian believes mortals need the same thing. One sovereign powerful enough to fight them. Rowan violently disagrees. The throne pulls. His first seal fractures another percentage. 88, then 87. Royal corpses outside the chamber begin kneeling toward him. Not good. Rowan grabs the black chain. He cannot overpower the throne directly, so he reads the structure. Dorian's claim depends on three things: royal records, succession chain, existing sovereign compatibility. Break 1. The throne stops pulling. The records are spread across 12 scholars. Too slow. The chain is in his hand. Possible. But Dorian expects that. So Rowan attacks the third component, himself. Not physically, legally. He invokes the rule he created inside Grave Dominion. Living entities excluded unless marked by death claim. Then he expands the distinction. He identifies himself not as sovereign candidate, but as foreign jurisdiction holder. The system resists. Royal death wants compatible authority. Rowan forces the conflict into explicit terms. First jurisdiction, active office. Seventh jurisdiction, vacant office. Accumulation prohibited by Concord law. The black chain loosens. Just slightly. Enough. Mira, she moves. No hesitation. Silver light explodes across her sword. But this time she does not cut one authority line. She sees all of them. Her Grave Sentinel class responds to the crisis it was designed for 1,000 years ago. One ruler approaching a second crown. Exactly the conditions Sentinels were created to stop. A notification flashes through her eyes. Rowan sees the silver pattern spread across her armor. Sentinel mandate recognized. Sovereign severance partial release. Not full evolution. Not yet. But close. Very close. Mira swings. One strike. The entire chamber becomes silver. Every black authority line connecting Rowan to the seventh throne snaps at once. The force launches Dorian across the floor. The golden divine tethers outside flicker too. Mira staggers. Blood runs from her nose. But she stays standing. The seventh warden looks at her. Mandate confirmed. Rowan looks toward the throne. Now, stage 3. Exploit. He uses the large-scale version of the boundary command. Not one corpse. Not one shadow. The entire throne node. He sees the system as thousands of connections. Royal corpse to throne. Throne to office. Office to divine passage. Dorian's false succession lines. The warden's custodial line. Pell's registry authority. Mira's severance mandate. Everything. And because he now understands the deeper truth revealed at the ossuary, Rowan does not try to dominate the network. He separates functions. Register custodial regency. The seventh warden raises his crown blade. First custodian recognized. Pell Orvin looks horrified. Why me? Rowan glances at him. You wanted fewer mistakes. Not exactly ceremonial language. Still works. Pell places his registry seal against the floor. Second custodian. The throne trembles. Mira wipes blood from her mouth, then plants her sword point down. Third. The catacomb goes silent. The black crown above the throne fractures into 3 equal sections. Not destroyed. Distributed. The throne stops calling Rowan. Every royal corpse outside the chamber freezes. Golden lines remain attached. Rowan is not done. Stage 4. Consequence. He looks at Mira. She already knows. Silver light runs along her sword. Rowan extends the boundary structure across every royal corpse in Crownfall. Hundreds of divine claims. Hundreds of golden connections. Back in Part 3, one line nearly killed him. Now grave cells spread through the halls as relay anchors. The same autonomous command structure he spent weeks building distributes the load. 1 cell becomes 3, 3 become 9. Dead soldiers rise from old side chambers and register as temporary anchors, not royal corpses, ordinary guards, servants, road wardens, people who remembered how this place functioned. The forgotten dead, exactly the kind Rowan has been learning from since the Plague Cemetery. They do not attack the kings. They carry commands. Boundary information moves through the network. Mira lifts her blade. Rowan gives one order. Sever foreign claim. She cuts. Not hundreds of times. Once. The grave cell network carries the severance pattern outward. Silver lines race through Crownfall. One hall, then another, then the entire catacomb. The golden tethers snap. Every last one. Above the mountain, the star disappears. Royal corpses collapse onto their thrones. The earth shakes. Not because Rowan summons, because an entire divine claim over Crownfall has just been rejected. For several seconds, nobody moves. Then the seventh warden turns toward Rowan. Royal death regency established. No king, no second crown. No repeat of the old disaster. Dorian lies against the wall, alive, barely conscious. He stares toward the split crown above the throne. You weakened it. Rowan walks toward him. No, He looks at Pell, then Mira, then the warden. I made it harder to steal. That is the difference Dorian never understood. Centralized power looks stronger, until one person fails. Rowan learned that lesson before ever reaching Crownfall. His grave cells work because authority can move. His dominion stabilizes because the dead recognize obligations rather than kneel to conquest. Kale administers the capital, while Rowan is hundreds of miles away. And now the 7th jurisdiction survives because nobody can own it alone. The outside world notices immediately. Every royal crypt across the Dominion rings once, not bells, coffins. Dead monarchs strike their own lids in recognition of the new regency. Inside the capital, Holt looks up from his desk. The registry's royal burial ledgers rewrite themselves. One designation appears beside every sovereign corpse. 7th jurisdiction custodial regency active. At the temples, priests lose access to royal passage records for 7 full seconds. 7 seconds. That is all. It is enough to terrify them. For the first time in 1,000 years, divine administration of royal death has competition again. And this time, there is no forbidden king sitting on the throne. There is a council. Back at Crownfall, Pell looks at Rowan differently now, not like an F-class failure, not even like a dangerous anomaly. Like someone who just changed the structure of an ancient power system while refusing the strongest upgrade available. Mira leans against her sword. You realize everyone will assume you control this anyway. They can be wrong. People are very talented at that. Fair. The 7th warden approaches Rowan. He holds out a small black metal plate, not a crown. A record token. First holder. Rowan accepts it through cloth. Old habits. Function? Proof of non-claim. That may be the most valuable artifact anyone has offered him. Evidence that Crownfall is not his jurisdiction. Evidence he refused the 2nd crown. Evidence the old Concord law still functions. Dorian watches from the floor. His expression is not hatred. It is disbelief. He truly cannot understand why Rowan walked away from more power. Our necromancer looks at him once. You wanted a mortal system that could challenge the gods. Dorian says nothing. Then stop rebuilding it like theirs. That lands harder than any spell. Outside Crownfall, clouds split apart, not peacefully. 3 golden eyes open at once, then 6 more. 9 divine observers stare down from the sky. So much for subtlety. The gods finally understand what changed. Rowan is not restoring the Forbidden King. He is restoring the institution that existed before one king swallowed it, which may be worse from their perspective. A single tyrant can be killed. A distributed system is much harder to erase. The mountain trembles under 9 divine gazes. Mira steps beside Rowan. Her sword begins glowing silver without being drawn. The Sentinel mandate remains active. Not complete, but awake. Pell looks upward. So what happens now? Rowan studies the eyes. They decide whether observation is still enough. And if it isn't, our necromancer looks back toward the catacomb. Hundreds of royal dead rest quietly again. 9 autonomous grave cells hold the corridors. The 7th warden stands beside a divided throne. Mira's severance authority hums like a blade waiting inside its sheath. For the first time, Rowan is not standing alone beneath divine attention. That is the real pivot. Not more undead. Not another seal. Structure. The system around him is becoming capable of surviving without one absolute ruler. And somewhere far above the clouds, one of the golden eyes finally narrows. A voice does not speak. A mysterious shadow does not laugh. Instead, every temple in the Dominion receives the same official divine decree at the exact same moment. Mortal death jurisdictions confirmed active. First holder identified. 7th Regency identified. Intervention review authorized. Rowan reads the copied decree hours later. He folds it once. Mira looks over his shoulder. Intervention sounds bad. Review sounds bureaucratic. That is what worries me. Rowan puts the decree away. Fair point. The gods are no longer merely watching. They are preparing a decision. And now, for the first time in 1,000 years, the mortal dead have enough structure to answer back. The night before divine intervention begins, Rowan repairs a sword. Not his, Mira's. The grave sentinel blade lies across a wooden table inside Crownfall's old guard kitchen, its silver edge covered in hairline fractures from severing an entire jurisdictional claim. No priests, no royal corpses, no ancient throne. Just a whetstone, a bowl of oil, and 2 bowls of beef stew growing cold beside them. Honestly, this may be the closest thing either of them has had to a normal evening in weeks. Mira sits across from Rowan with her left forearm wrapped in fresh bandages. The injury is not from combat, it is authority burn. Every time she uses Sovereign Severance, the silver lines of her Sentinel mandate travel from her hand toward her heart. At Crownfall, they reached her elbow. One more large-scale severance could push them farther, possibly permanently. Rowan turns the sword over. There, A fracture runs from the guard almost halfway along the blade. You used too much force. Mira takes a spoonful of stew. You connected me to hundreds of royal corpses. Still excessive. You were being dragged into an ancient death throne. Technical? Detail. She gives him the same flat stare she has perfected since their first meeting. The kitchen smells like pepper, boiled onion, and the smoke from an old iron stove. Somewhere beyond the wall, Crownfall's dead guards continue restoring broken corridors under the 7th Warden's direction. Metal scrapes over stone. Slow, regular, almost peaceful. Rowan pours oil onto the whetstone. Then he starts working. Not because Mira cannot maintain her own weapon. Because the fractures match the silver authority lines he has been studying since Archive Room 6. Her blade is not merely damaged. It is recording the stress pattern of sovereign severance. Every time she cuts an authority connection, the sword becomes part of the circuit. That gives Rowan an idea. Dangerous. Naturally, he takes out 3 strips of black metal, fragments from the false succession chain Dorian used at Crownfall. Mira stops eating. No, Rowan does not look up. I haven't said anything. You're holding forbidden metal next to my sword. Observation. That word has ruined several weeks of my life. Fair. He places 1 black strip alongside the fractured blade. Silver Sentinel energy immediately crawls toward it. The metal rejects the light. Then something interesting happens. The energy bends around the fragment. Not absorbed, redirected. Rowan watches closely. Authority chain material is designed to conduct sovereign commands. Sentinel silver is designed to sever sovereign commands. Opposite functions. Same medium. That means the black metal can potentially shape Mira's severance instead of simply enduring it. He moves the fragment. The silver line changes direction. There. A mechanical solution. Not more power. Better routing. Rowan slides the untouched stew toward Mira before it gets colder. She takes it without comment. Then he starts carving a narrow groove along the sword's guard. What are you doing? Preventing the next severance from using your arm as the shortest route. Mira pauses. Now she pays attention. Rowan places the black strip into the groove. The idea is simple. Currently, sovereign severance enters through Mira's body, travels into the weapon, then explodes outward through whatever connection she cuts. That makes her the conduit. Bad design. So Rowan reverses it. The blade should become the primary conduit. Mira supplies the mandate. The black chain alloy holds the authority pattern. The silver edge releases the severance. Her body only provides authorization, not transmission. He tightens the fragment into place. Mira touches the hilt. Silver lines appear. They travel halfway across her palm, then stop. Instead, light spreads through the embedded black metal. The entire sword hums. Both of them go still. No mysterious power boost. No divine blessing. Just a repaired circuit doing exactly what Rowan hoped it would do. Mira lifts the blade. The silver edge becomes unnaturally thin, not brighter, sharper. Authority sharp, she looks at Rowan. How much does this reduce the strain? Don't know. Excellent. Probably significant. That word inspires confidence. Hour. Necromancer hands her the whetstone. Finish the edge. Mira does. For the next 20 minutes, neither of them says much. Stone slides over metal. Oil gathers beneath the blade. The stove pops softly. Rowan eats his stew once it is almost cold. Mira reaches across the table and pushes the pepper jar toward him without looking. Small gesture, nothing dramatic. That is enough. Afterward, Rowan begins working on his own problem, the final mechanism. The one he has been building since the first shadow attacked Archive Room 6, Boundary Command. At first, Rowan used it to pull a foreign entity back into a corpse. Later, he used it to trace a remote controller. At Crownfall, he scaled the same principle across hundreds of royal dead, with grave cells acting as relay anchors. It worked, barely. The problem is speed. He still has to perceive each layer of a conflict. Body, death, authority, connection. With dozens of targets, manageable. Hundreds, brutal. Thousands, impossible. And the divine decree says intervention. Nobody knows what form that intervention takes. Rowan assumes the worst reasonable scale. That usually saves time. He walks into Crownfall's eastern gallery. 9 registered grave cells wait inside, 4 undead each, 36 units. The same network that helped carry Mira's severance through the catacomb. Rowan orders them into 3 rings. Outer, middle, inner. Not military ranks. Processing layers. The outer ring identifies bodies and claims. The middle ring maps connections. The inner ring assigns priority. Instead of Rowan personally reading every authority line, the grave cells filter information before it reaches him. That is the first improvement. The second is harder. Boundary Command currently requires Rowan to act after a foreign claim forms. Reactive, too slow. He needs a standing rule. Something closer to Grave Dominion law. But Crownfall is not his jurisdiction. and Rowan refuses to claim it just to make his life easier. So he creates no territorial law, he creates a network instruction. Every registered grave cell receives the same condition. If foreign death authority enters an allied jurisdiction, identify source. Identify target, preserve connection, do not obey. Simple. The undead stand still. Rowan waits. Nothing. Then the first jurisdiction reacts from 180 miles away. Not because he is using grave dominion. Because Kale recognizes the structure. Delegated boundary protocol detected. Third function compatibility increasing. Command architecture stable. There. The third jurisdiction again. Command. Still sealed. Still inaccessible. But Rowan has been building toward its logic since Part 2 without possessing it. Exactly the way the first seal's functions surfaced before formal recognition. He does not try forcing the third open. That would be stupid. Instead, he keeps refining the structure he already has. Mira enters the gallery carrying her modified blade. Testing? Yes. On what? Rowan points toward a single royal skeleton waiting beside the wall. The seventh warden approved the test. The corpse carries no divine claim. For now, Pell stands near the throne node with a legal tablet in hand. He has volunteered to simulate a foreign royal directive, not because he enjoys this, because after Crownfall, Pell has become painfully committed to preventing another administrative catastrophe. A surprisingly motivating hobby. Pell activates the tablet. A temporary succession command strikes the royal corpse. The grave cells react instantly. Outer ring registers, foreign claim. Middle ring maps, royal corpse to Pell's tablet. Inner ring marks source. Rowan receives the entire structure as one compressed pattern, not hundreds of sensations. 1. He reaches out. Boundary command. The connection freezes. Mira steps forward. One swing. The silver edge cuts the simulated claim. Her authority lines never pass beyond the base of her fingers. Excellent. Pell looks at the dead tablet. That was faster. Again. They repeat it, then with 2 corpses, then 8. Then 24. No montage. No endless repetition. Each test changes one parameter. More targets. Multiple sources. Crossed authority lines. Delayed commands. One false connection hidden between legitimate ones. The relay network learns nothing on its own. Rowan does. He modifies anchor priority after each failure. When one grave cell overloads, he redistributes identification tasks. When 2 cells flag the same connection, he adds duplication suppression. When Pell inserts a legitimate custodial instruction beside a hostile claim, Rowan marks the difference by authorization signature rather than power level. That part matters, because divine authority will almost certainly be stronger than his own. Raw strength cannot be the filter. Legitimacy must be. By midnight, the protocol handles 30 royal corpses under 5 simultaneous claims without Rowan manually reading a single individual tether. The system provides no grand announcement, just one quiet line. Delegated boundary protocol stabilized. Rowan closes his eyes. That is the skill. Not a new spell. Not a hidden beam of death. A battlefield-wide authority filter built from 3 things he already possesses. Grave cell autonomy. Boundary command. Jurisdictional law distinction. Foreshadowed. Tested. Scaled. Now ready. Mira sits on the edge of an old stone platform while Rowan dismisses the last simulation. She flexes her sword hand. No blackened veins. No silver burn beyond her knuckles. The modification works. Mostly. Then the sword speaks. Not with a voice. A line of silver writing appears along the black metal inlay. Sentinel succession available. Mira immediately stops moving. Rowan walks closer. What does that mean? She does not answer because she does not know. The 7th warden does. He enters the gallery carrying the divided regency crown. His blue eyes focus on Mira's blade. Preparation recognized. For what? She asks. Full sentinel investiture. There it is. Evolution. Not complete. Preparation. Specific. The warden explains. Grave Sentinel is the modern degraded form. The original office carried another title. Crown Severer. A sentinel who proves capable of distinguishing lawful authority from unlawful accumulation can inherit the full mandate. Not simply cutting necromancy, not opposing Rowan automatically, judging concentration of death jurisdiction. That distinction matters. Mira looks toward Rowan. So my class does not exist to kill you. Comforting. It exists to kill you if you become a tyrant. Less comforting. The 7th warden corrects him. Not kill. Rowan looks toward the skeleton. Sever. Right. Technically different. Potentially worse. For full investiture, Mira needs 3 confirmations. 1. Sovereign jurisdiction recognizing her mandate. Already done by the first. 1 independent jurisdiction recognizing her neutrality. Crownfall can provide that now. And 1 voluntary acknowledgement from the authority holder she is assigned to restrain. That would be Rowan. Of course it would. Mira says nothing, neither does he. The warden places the divided crown plate on the table. No ceremony, no mystical chanting, just an administrative object waiting for signatures. Honestly, very on brand for this entire ancient civilization. Rowan takes the metal stylus. Mira watches him. You know what this gives me. Yes. If you ever start accumulating jurisdictions, cut them. If you refuse, cut harder. Mira's expression does not change, but her hand tightens once around the hilt. That is enough, Rowan signs. The first jurisdiction answers from the capital. Acknowledgement registered. The 7th Regency responds beneath their feet. Neutral mandate recognized. Mira places her palm against the crown plate. Silver light travels across it, then stops. The evolution does not happen. Not yet. A final line appears. Investiture pending live sovereign violation. So her full crown severer authority will only awaken when something actually attempts unlawful jurisdictional accumulation. Very specific trigger. Very inconvenient timing. Probably exactly what they need for Part 9. Rowan writes the condition down. Mira looks at him. You really do take notes about everything. Especially things capable of cutting pieces of my class off. Reasonable. The quiet does not last. 300 miles west, inside the Dominion capital, Director Holt receives a sealed order from the Temple of Dawn. Not a divine decree, a human one. The High Pontiff has invoked the Passage Emergency Act. At dawn, every registered necromancer in the Dominion is to be detained. Every burial site touched by forbidden authority is to be placed under temple jurisdiction, and the royal ossuary is to be purified by direct divine conduit. Holt reads the final line twice. Purification authorized even if first jurisdiction collapses. Kale stands across the room. Blue fire burns inside his skull. If the node collapses, Holt folds the order. The Northern District dies, not metaphorically. The restored first jurisdiction currently stabilizes thousands of burial connections beneath the capital. Destroying it violently would release every suppressed death claim at once. The temples know. They authorized it anyway. Holt reaches for his coat. Wake the registry guard. Kale does not move. Purpose? Holt looks toward the royal ossuary. For once, to protect the dead from the priests. At the same time, far above the clouds, the Divine Intervention Review concludes. 9 golden seals rotate around a central gate. One after another, they approve, record. Judgment, passage, claim, sanction, custody, purification, correction, finality. The gate begins opening, and beneath it stands a figure in white gold armor, not a god, a vessel. Human-shaped, alive enough to enter mortal territory, dead enough to cross every burial boundary. Its title appears simultaneously inside every temple scripture in the Dominion. Passage Executor Oryx. Intervention authority granted. Mission parameters. Dismantle first jurisdiction. Dissolve 7th Regency. Recover all sovereign dead. Terminate forbidden succession. Oryx steps through the gate. The sky above Crownfall turns white. Back inside the catacomb, every royal corpse sits upright. Not summoned. Warning response. Rowan feels the change instantly. So does Mira. The peaceful kitchen is already behind them. The repaired sword hangs at her hip. The black inlay pulses with silver light. Rowan folds his final boundary diagram and places it inside his coat. Pell arrives from the upper corridor, breathing hard. Temple riders. How many? Thousands. Naturally. And something else is coming with them. The mountain trembles. Dust falls from the ceiling. Rowan walks toward the main gate. No speech. No dramatic vow. He stops only long enough to register every grave cell in Crownfall under the new delegated boundary protocol. 36 undead lock into position. Outer ring. Middle ring. Inner ring. Mira takes her place beside him and draws the repaired sword. The silver edge stays quiet. Waiting for its trigger, Rowan opens Crownfall's doors. White divine light floods the bridge outside. At the far end stands Oryx. Behind the executor, an entire temple host covers the royal highway. Above them, 9 golden eyes open across the morning sky. Our necromancer adjusts the cuff hiding the black lines on his wrist. Then he steps onto the bridge. The quiet part is finished. Passage Executor Oryx crosses the hidden bridge without taking a single step. White light simply moves around him. One moment he stands at the far end beneath 9 golden eyes. The next, he is 10 feet from Rowan. No wind. No sound. No visible spell. And every royal corpse inside Crownfall immediately lowers its head. Not obedience, recognition. Something with the legal right to process kings has just entered the building. Rowan feels the foreign authority hit his delegated boundary protocol. Outer ring registers first. Living vessel. Death-compatible structure. Divine authorization. Multiple jurisdiction claims. The middle ring maps the connections. 9. Of course. 9 separate golden lines run from Oryx into the sky. Each line carries a different office: record, judgment, passage, claim, sanction, custody, purification, correction, finality. The inner ring assigns priority. Everything. Our necromancer almost laughs. That is not helpful. RX looks at Rowan. His face is human, young, even. No divine radiance leaking from the eyes, no halo, just white gold armor and an expression so calm it barely qualifies as alive. Rowan Vale. His voice reaches every corridor inside Crownfall at once. Holder of unauthorized first jurisdiction, Rowan keeps his hands relaxed. Authorized by whom? Oryx pauses. Tiny. Almost invisible. Interesting. The divine passage system recognizes no mortal jurisdiction. Then unauthorized seems redundant. Mira's sword hums beside him. Pell closes his eyes for half a second, probably reconsidering every decision that brought him here. Oryx raises one hand. The temple host behind him stops. Thousands of soldiers freeze in formation. No commander repeats the order. No signal flag moves. One gesture is enough. Relinquish the first jurisdiction. No. Dissolve the seventh regency. No. Release sovereign dead to divine passage. Not all of them are requesting passage. Oryx's expression finally changes. Barely. You presume dead bodies possess standing. That sentence matters. Rowan catches it immediately. Not souls, bodies, standing. The gods recognize claims. They simply do not recognize the dead as participants in those claims. There is the philosophical difference reduced into actual mechanics. The divine system processes. The forbidden system administers. Oryx sees dead souls as subjects moving through a pipeline. Rowan's restored jurisdictions can recognize them as registered parties. That distinction may decide everything. The executor lowers his hand. Intervention begins. White light explodes. Stage 1. Take the hit. Crownfall's bridge disappears under divine fire. The outer grave cell ring disintegrates instantly. 8 skeletons vanish. Not broken. Erased. The remaining cells throw authority data inward before their connections disappear. Rowan receives the pattern. Purification does not attack undead flesh first. It attacks legal recognition. The erased grave cells still physically exist somewhere beneath the light, but Crownfall no longer recognizes them as valid dead. That is brutal. Mira launches herself forward. Her repaired sword meets Oryx's forearm. Silver against gold. The impact splits the bridge. Oryx does not move. Mira does. She flies backward through one stone pillar. Her blade survives. Good repair. Bad matchup. Oryx extends 2 fingers toward the throne chamber. Custodial Regency invalid. The 7th warden freezes. His blue fire turns gold. Pell drops his registry seal. The divided crown begins pulling itself back together. There, the gods are not destroying Crownfall. They are reversing the administrative changes Rowan created. Much smarter, much worse. Temple soldiers advance behind Oryx, not charging wildly. They carry burial censers, passage ledgers, and consecrated chains. These are not battlefield troops. They are an occupation bureaucracy with armor. Every captured corridor becomes divine territory. Royal corpses disappear into golden transit gates. Registry marks burn off old coffins. The mortal system is being dismantled department by department. Oryx walks forward. Rowan retreats. Not panic. Reading. He watches every golden connection. Record identifies. Claim attaches. Judgment categorizes. Passage removes. Custody prevents interference. Purification erases competing status. The executor is not one fighter using 9 unrelated powers. He is a workflow. Each office feeds the next. That means the obvious weakness is not Oryx himself. It is sequence. Break one stage. Everything behind it slows. Rowan's inner grave cells identify the fastest repeating chain. Record first. Always. Nothing is processed until the divine system registers it. Our necromancer points toward Pell. Give me a corpse they don't have. Pell stares. What? A royal corpse not listed in temple records. You're asking for an undocumented king during a divine invasion? Yes. Pell looks offended by the administrative impossibility. Then the 7th warden speaks. Lower West Crypt. Of course Crownfall has one. Everyone runs. RX follows. No hurry. That is unsettling. Inside the Lower West Crypt lies a child-sized sarcophagus. No name, no crown. Only a bronze ring. The 7th warden opens it. Small skeleton. Maybe 12 years old. Pell's expression changes. Who is this? King Orin Thrice, uncrowned. That title raises several questions. No time. The warden explains only what matters. Orin inherited 3 kingdoms during a succession plague, but was never formally crowned in any of them, royal by law. Absent from divine royal ledgers because no coronation rite completed. Perfect. Rowan does not summon him. He touches the coffin. Recognize. Burial recognition responds. Orin. Royal status confirmed. Divine registration absent. The doors explode inward. RX enters. He immediately points at the corpse. Record activates. Golden script forms. Rowan watches. There. A delay. Less than 1 second. Enough. He orders every surviving grave cell to flood the network with existing local recognition. Orin's identity moves through Crownfall before record finishes, creating a divine entry. Mortal registration first. The golden script stutters. Oryx's eyes narrow. Rowan finally has the opening. Stage 2. Read complete. The divine workflow depends on priority of recognition. If something enters the divine system before the mortal one, the gods control processing. If the mortal jurisdiction recognizes it first, divine authority must contest rather than simply overwrite. Different legal state. Much harder. Rowan scales. Register every dead subject in Crownfall. The 7th warden turns sharply. That is thousands. Yes. Your network cannot process that. It couldn't yesterday. Now it can. Part 8. Outer ring identifies bodies and claims. Middle ring maps. Inner ring prioritizes. Except RX destroyed half the network. So Rowan changes architecture mid-battle. He stops organizing by location. He organizes by function. Every surviving grave cell becomes one processing node. One handles names. One titles. One burial claims. One prior jurisdiction. One divine interference. Then the royal dead themselves become relays, not controlled soldiers. Registered participants. Orin is first. Then another uncrowned prince. Then an exiled queen. Then kings already sitting in the main hall. The network expands through voluntary recognition. Not resurrection. Administration. Oryx raises his hand. Purification. White fire consumes the lower crypt. Rowan takes the blast directly. His coat burns away on one side. Skin beneath turns gray. The first jurisdiction shakes violently. 84%. Mira appears through the light. She drives her modified blade into the floor between Rowan and Oryx. Silver spreads through the black inlay. The purification beam bends, not stopped. Redirected, the repaired circuit works exactly as designed. Authority enters the sword. Not her arm. The silver edge routes it sideways. Half the crypt wall disappears. Mira's fingers blacken at the tips. Only the tips. Without the modification, that strike would have burned to her shoulder. Preparation pays off. Oryx looks at the blade. Sentinel technology. Mira pulls it free. Apparently. He attacks her seriously this time. One palm. No spectacle. Mira blocks. The impact cracks 3 ribs. Rowan hears it. She keeps standing. Oryx turns his hand. Custody activates. Golden chains form around Mira. Not ordinary binding. Her class designation begins disappearing from the air. Grave Sentinel. Letters erase one by one. He is stripping her legal mandate. Rowan's expression changes. For the first time in the fight, something cold becomes personal. Not rage. Choice. Deliberate. He could pull back. Preserve his first jurisdiction. Sacrifice Crownfall. Let divine authority reclaim the royal dead. Probably survive. Then Mira's class disappears completely. The person who has stood beside him from the first dead patch of grass becomes administratively invalid because she helped stop one, thrown from swallowing another. No, that option closes. Rowan steps into RX's custody field. The golden chains attack him too. His interface flickers. Necromancer Class F. First jurisdiction holder. Grave Dominion. All begin fading. He smiles faintly. Good. Now the foreign claim is touching him directly. Exactly what he needs. He grabs one golden chain. Boundary command. Not metaphor. Full connection. Oryx to custody. Custody to divine gate. Divine gate to 9 offices. The delegated boundary protocol explodes with information. Too much. Rowan's vision turns black at the edges. Blood runs from his nose. But this time he does not process every line himself. Grave cells do it. Names. Claims. Connections. Priority. The same little system he started with 4 skeletons in a quarry now parses a divine administrative network. Ridiculous scale. Same mechanism. Rowan finds the central dependency, not record. He was wrong. Record starts the workflow, but custody keeps every divine office attached to RX's vessel. Break custody, the offices separate. RX becomes 9 authorities without 1 holder. Exactly the condition that triggers Concord law. Unlawful accumulation. Mira's sword begins screaming. Silver writing ignites across the black inlay. Live sovereign. Violation detected. Multiple death jurisdictions concentrated in single vessel. Sentinel investiture conditions satisfied. There it is. Not random, not early, exactly the trigger defined beforehand. Mira looks at the words. Then at Rowan. He already signed the acknowledgement in Crownfall. First jurisdiction recognizes her. Seventh Regency recognizes neutrality. Now a live violation stands directly in front of her. The silver lines running across her fingers reverse direction. They do not climb her arm. They move into the sword. The black chain inlay melts, not destroyed, integrated. Her armor changes next. No gigantic wings. No absurd transformation. The old Grave Sentinel plate split along functional seams. Silver lines form across joints, chest, and blade hand. A narrow black band appears around her sword arm, the legal mark of independent severance authority. A new designation burns above her, Crown Severer, full mandate. RX steps back. First genuine reaction. No mortal sentinel retains that office. Mira raises her sword. One does now, she swings. Oryx blocks with divine sanction. Gold and silver collide. This time he moves, one step backward, then another. The entire temple host freezes. The gods above Crownfall focus. All 9 eyes widen. Our necromancer tightens his grip around the custody line. Now, Mira cuts. Custody breaks. Oryx's 9 divine offices separate. Golden sigils erupt around his body. Record moves left. Judgment right. Passage above. Claim behind. The vessel can no longer synchronize them. For the first time, Oryx looks human and horrified. Conquered law responds through Crownfall, multiple jurisdiction, accumulation detected, neutral severance authorized. Mira cuts again, not Oryx. The links between offices. 1, 2, 3. Each strike precise, no wasted movement. The temple army tries advancing. The 7th Warden raises his blade. Royal corpses stand. Not under Rowan. Under Regency authority, Pell slams his registry seal into the throne mechanism. Crownfall custodians recognize defensive mobilization. Hundreds of kings rise, not as servants. As sovereign dead defending their own burial jurisdiction, the temple host finally understands what changed. This is not Rowan's undead army. He is not controlling Crownfall. That makes it harder to decapitate. There is no single command point, exactly the structure Dorian refused to understand. Oryx activates purification independently. Without custody synchronization, the attack spills wider than intended. White fire tears across both temple soldiers and royal dead. He cannot safely coordinate his own authorities anymore. Rowan sees the vulnerability. Stage 3. Kai Hua. He activates the completed delegated boundary protocol at full scale. Every registered grave cell in Crownfall receives the same instruction. Identify foreign claims. Preserve lawful local claims. Route hostile connections to Crown Severer. The network ignites. Black lines race through the catacomb. Not death energy. Information. Thousands of connections collapse into manageable channels. Mira sees them. All of them. Her evolved class was never meant to cut blindly. It was meant to judge structures. The grave cells show her which lines are unlawful concentration. She cuts only those. Divine passage remains intact where individual dead consent to leave. Record remains intact where names are legitimately processed. Judgment remains outside mortal jurisdiction, but forced claim cut, forced custody cut, purification over recognized graves cut, correction trying to erase the 7th Regency cut. This is not war against death's divine system. It is rejection of monopoly. The distinction matters. The gods cannot call it indiscriminate rebellion because Rowan keeps allowing lawful passage. Every corpse that chooses release still ascends. Every spirit requesting transit still goes. Only forced seizure fails. That is the information from Part 5 turned into decisive strategy. The old conflict was never simply mortal versus divine. It was competing ownership structures. Rowan refuses ownership as the answer. Oryx realizes it. You cannot sustain parallel jurisdiction. Rowan looks at him through blood-covered vision. Then stop making it necessary. Oryx attacks. Finality. The 9th office. The one nobody has seen yet. A black gold spear forms in his hand. Everything it touches becomes permanently concluded. No corpse, no spirit, no memory. No resurrection, no future claim. Finality is not death. It is deletion from every death system. Oryx drives the spear toward Rowan. Mira intercepts. Her blade meets it. Silver cracks. Black inlay screams. She cannot sever finality because it is not an accumulated jurisdictional claim. It is an execution function. Rowan understands in 1 second. So he does something simple. He summons. Not kings, not wardens, not ancient monsters. Every ordinary dead guard whose procedural memory he has used throughout Crownfall. Road wardens, crypt workers, servants, soldiers, dozens rise. Then hundreds. The earth trembles. For the first time since Grey March, Rowan stops limiting output. The first seal fractures. 80, 77. 73. The entire mountain shakes. Every battlefield scar around Crownfall turns gray. Temple soldiers look around in absolute terror. This is the power the title promised from the beginning. Every time Rowan summons at scale, the earth itself reacts. But this time he does not create an uncontrolled army. He gives one familiar command. Carry. The dead understand. Grave cells form automatically. 4, then 16, then 64. Hierarchy cascades. Delegated authority multiplies. The entire catacomb becomes one distributed command architecture. Finality strikes the front rank. Those undead disappear completely. The next rank inherits their tasks instantly. Then the next. Then another. Oryx keeps deleting. The structure keeps rerouting. He can end bodies. He cannot end a command that has no single body. That is Rowan's answer. Not invincibility. Redundancy. Oryx finally reaches him. The spear enters Rowan's side. Pain goes white. Everything stops. Mira shouts his name. Rowan grips the spear shaft. Deep down, he knows exactly what happens if finality reaches his first jurisdiction core. Grave Dominion ends. Permanently. Maybe that would save everyone trouble. One easy answer. He rejects it. Not because he wants power, because thousands of dead under the royal ossuary now possess recognized names, graves, claims, and choices that did not exist before him. Because Crownfall now has a regency instead of a throne. Because Mira's mandate proves power can exist with a blade held against its abuse. Rowan finally lets the emotion show, not fury. Possession, responsibility. You don't get to erase them because paperwork was easier before. Then he closes his hand. Every grave cell transfers one preserved connection into him. Not power, recognition. Thousands of dead subjects, hundreds of royal claims, 2 functioning mortal jurisdictions. The spear's finality function suddenly has a problem. To erase Rowan's office, it must now resolve every recognized dependency attached to it. Too many. The process stalls. 1 second. That is enough. Mira moves. Crown severer. Full mandate. She does not cut finality. She cuts Oryx's right to hold it beside the other 8 offices. The golden sigil tears away from his body. The spear dissolves inside Rowan's wound. Oryx staggers. All 9 divine offices hang separately around him. No custody. No synchronization. No lawful basis for one vessel to possess them together. The 7th warden raises his blade. Pell raises the registry seal. Mira levels her sword. Rowan activates the protocol one last time. Every hostile concentration line becomes visible. Then our necromancer gives the simplest order of the entire battle. Return them. Mira cuts. 9 times. Each divine office shoots upward. Record, judgment. Passage, claim, sanction. Custody, purification, correction. Finality. They tear through Crownfall's ceiling and disappear into the golden eyes above. Oryx remains standing. Just a man in broken white armor. No divine network. No impossible authority. No final strike. The temple host lowers its weapons one by one, not surrender. Uncertainty. They were ordered by a divine executor. The executor no longer possesses intervention authority. Nobody has issued a replacement command. For once, bureaucracy saves the world. Above Crownfall, the 9 golden eyes remain open. They could intervene directly, maybe. But now doing so means acknowledging the mortal jurisdictions as an actual opposing legal structure rather than an unauthorized anomaly. The gods hesitate. That hesitation is the victory, not killing them, not dethroning heaven, forcing recognition. Oryx looks at Rowan. Blood pours from the necromancer's side. Hundreds of summoned dead still stand through the catacomb. Greyland spreads around Crownfall. The first seal sits at 68%, dangerously fractured. His power is stronger than ever. So is the cost. Oryx looks toward Mira, then at her crown severer mark. Finally, he looks at the divided 7th throne. You restored the concord. Rowan shakes his head. No. The ancient system was not perfect. It produced the tyrant that caused the War of 9 Crowns. Restoring it unchanged would be another form of worshipping the past. We changed it. That answer seems to disturb the gods more. One golden eye closes, then another. The rest follow slowly. Before the final eye disappears, a line of divine script burns across the sky. Mortal jurisdiction status. Contested. Intervention suspended. Review deferred. Not recognition. Not peace, but not eradication. Enough for today. The clouds close. Sunlight returns. Mira's sword finally drops. Her crown severe designation remains. Permanent. Evolution complete. She catches Rowan before he falls. His knees hit the bridge anyway. Close enough. Pell walks past dozens of temple soldiers who no longer know whether arresting anyone is still authorized. The 7th warden returns to the throne. Royal corpses lie back inside their tombs, one by one. No chains, no forced passage, no king. The grave cells begin collapsing as Rowan releases them. Hundreds of ordinary dead return to their resting places. The earth stops shaking, but the gray scars around Crownfall remain, a reminder. Every massive summon still converts something. Every expansion still carries cost. The Forbidden class is not safe now. It is simply governed. Back in the capital, Kael receives the outcome through the first jurisdiction. The royal ossuary remains intact. Holt burns the temple purification order. Dorian Sable, still imprisoned, reads the new status notice twice. Contested. Not divine, not mortal, shared conflict. His entire dream of one sovereign opposing heaven has just been disproven by a teenager who wins specifically because he refuses the crown Dorian kept trying to give him. For once, Dorian has nothing to write. At Crownfall, Oryx begins walking toward the temple host. Rowan stops him with one question. Were you ever given a choice? Oryx pauses. The white armor around him is already losing its glow. He does not answer. That silence is enough. Another problem for another time. Mira tightens the bandage around Rowan's side. Painfully, he looks at her. That seems excessive. You got stabbed by divine finality. It's gone. The hole isn't. Fair. She ties the bandage harder anyway. The crown severer mark remains black around her arm. Not his servant. Not his subordinate. Not even merely his companion anymore. She is the official person empowered to stop him if the Forbidden Authority ever starts repeating its oldest mistake. And Rowan, somehow, looks more comfortable with that than anyone else. Crownfall's divided crown settles above the 7th throne. The first jurisdiction stabilizes remotely. The 7th regency holds. No second crown sits on Rowan's head. No divine gate remains open. For the first time since the weakest class in existence appeared on his certificate, nobody present mistakes the letter anymore. F was never failure. It was a warning label. And after watching the ground die beneath a single unrestricted summoning network, every temple soldier on that bridge finally understands why the warning existed. The Forbidden Necromancer is real. The seals are breaking. But the person holding them has just proven something neither the gods nor the old Forbidden King managed to understand. Power this catastrophic does not need a stronger throne. It needs something strong enough to stop the person sitting on it. Mira slides the repaired sword back into its sheath. Rowan looks toward the road home. Then he stands. 3 weeks after Crownfall, Rowan Vale receives a new class certificate. Same building, same Hall of Ascension, same silver testing crystal, different atmosphere. The first time Rowan stands here, nobody cares enough to mock him properly. Necromancer, Class F, a bureaucratic failure. Something weaker than weak. Now every examiner in the hall is standing. Nobody ordered them to. They simply know who walked through the door. Mira follows 2 steps behind him with her repaired sword at her hip. The black inlay remains fused into the guard. A narrow dark band circles her sword arm. Crown severer. Not hidden, not temporary. Officially recognized by the Royal Registry exactly 11 days ago after Holt spent 4 consecutive nights rewriting regulations nobody expected to need again. Pel Orvin waits near the testing platform. No chains this time, no examiner robes either. He has been stripped of his former post. Instead, he carries the new seal of Crownfall's custodial representative. Less authority. Much more accountability. Apparently surviving a near apocalypse is excellent motivation for administrative reform. Director Holt stands beside him. The old testing crystal sits between them. Rowan looks at it. Mira looks at him. Try not to break this one. No promises. The examiner nearest the pedestal visibly stops breathing. Fair reaction. Rowan places his palm against the crystal. Nothing happens. Then the entire Hall of Ascension goes dark. Several officials flinch. The crystal turns black from the center outward. No crack. No explosion. No earthquake. Just black. Letters form inside it. Necromancer. The original designation appears beneath. Forbidden Authority Holder. Then another line. First, jurisdiction active. And finally, modern combat rank. Unresolved. Silence. Rowan looks at Holt. That seems familiar. Holt rubs 2 fingers against his forehead. The ranking system cannot quantify jurisdictional classes. So technically F remains accurate. Pel actually laughs. One examiner does not. Mira folds her arms. Please do not encourage him. The registry has spent 3 weeks investigating the original classification error. The result is almost embarrassingly mundane. When the old death offices were erased 1,000 years ago, the word forbidden remained buried inside several foundational class tables. Centuries later, modern awakening systems shortened unknown category markers to their first character. Forbidden became F. Then newer scholars assumed F meant lowest tier. Nobody questioned it because no genuine forbidden class awakened for 1,000 years. A world-ending historical censorship measure eventually became a bad grading scale. Rowan's first certificate is placed inside the Registry Museum 2 days later, not because he asks. He specifically does not ask. The little piece of paper now sits behind reinforced glass with 3 security wards and a brass plaque explaining that the weakest class ever recorded was never weak at all. Our necromancer finds that deeply unnecessary. The public finds it extremely interesting. Grey March becomes restricted permanently. Not because Rowan still controls it. He does not. The battlefield simply never fully recovers. The dead grass remains. Small plants begin returning around the edges, but the central zone stays gray. Researchers discover something strange there. Corpses buried inside the affected region decay more slowly. Residual memories remain unusually stable. Necromantic commands persist longer. The battlefield has become a scar left by uncontrolled forbidden authority, a warning in physical form. Rowan requests that nobody build a tourist platform. The city approves. Then immediately receives 3 commercial proposals for one anyway. Some problems survive even divine intervention. The northern district changes more dramatically. The royal ossuary remains the anchor of the first jurisdiction, but the dead zone around it stops expanding completely. Rowan never repairs the gray grass artificially. He could probably alter the territory further now. He chooses not to. Instead, stone markers are placed at the boundary. Not warning signs, jurisdiction notices. Living persons remain outside death claim unless legally marked. Burial rights are recognized. Foreign seizure requires contest. Voluntary passage remains available. Simple rules, visible rules, that matters. Families return, at first, slowly, then in crowds. People who avoided the ossuary for years because of corruption rumors now bring flowers. Names missing from old burial records begin reappearing. Burial recognition identifies forgotten soldiers, workers, children, prisoners, travelers, people who died without enough money for proper registration. The registry establishes an entire new department to handle them. Holt gives Rowan naming authority over it. Rowan refuses. So Holt names it the Office of Recognized Dead himself. Rowan hates the name. It stays anyway. Cale Arden becomes its first warden administrator. Watching an ancient armored skeleton conduct, registry meetings causes some difficulty during the first week. By the second week, clerks simply start leaving forms on his desk. Cale is dead. Cale is also extremely good at filing. Apparently, civilization adapts quickly when paperwork is involved. More importantly, the first jurisdiction stabilizes. Not through conquest, not through forced recognition, through fulfilled obligations. Every properly restored burial adds another tiny piece of legitimacy. The seal stops degrading. 68% remains fractured. Dangerous, permanent for now, but stable. Rowan no longer wakes every morning expecting the number to drop because someone moved a chain fragment somewhere in the capital. That alone feels almost luxurious. Crownfall changes too. The 7th throne stays empty. The divided crown never reforms. Pell represents registry custody. The 7th warden represents the dead office itself. Mira holds neutral severance authority. 3 points. No king. No single owner. Royal families initially hate this arrangement. Then they discover the alternative is letting divine administrators reclaim exclusive authority over every royal corpse in the Dominion. Complaints decrease remarkably fast. The temples do not surrender. They do something more interesting. They negotiate. Not all of them. The Temple of Dawn publicly condemns the restored mortal jurisdictions. 3 smaller passage temples withdraw from that declaration within a week. Their priests have seen the same records Rowan has. Voluntary passage still works inside Grave Dominion. Souls choosing divine transit are not trapped. The mortal system is not blocking religion. It is blocking compulsory ownership. That distinction splits the theological establishment almost immediately. No holy war begins. No peaceful reconciliation magically happens either. Instead, committees appear. Arguments appear. Treaties begin being drafted. Messy, slow, human. Rowan prefers it. Arik survives Crownfall. Without the 9 divine offices, he becomes an ordinary man almost overnight. Ordinary may be generous. His body had been maintained by divine authority for years. Once that support disappears, every old injury returns at once. Temple healers keep him alive. The Synod does not execute him. It also does not restore his former position. He becomes something much more inconvenient. A witness. Holt offers him protection. Oryx accepts after 3 days. He currently lives in a registry residence under guard, while scholars argue over whether a former divine vessel legally counts as clergy, military personnel, or evidence. Nobody has solved that one yet. Rowan visits once. Only once. Oryx is sitting at a table eating soup when he arrives. No armor, no golden light. Just a tired man trying to hold a spoon with a hand that shakes slightly. Rowan places a copy of Crownfall's Regency Charter on the table. Oryx looks at it. You want me to endorse this? No. Then why bring it? You asked whether parallel jurisdiction can survive. Oryx looks down at the document. Rowan turns to leave. That is the entire conversation. No forgiveness. No grand reconciliation. No philosophical speech. Just evidence. Whether Oryx accepts it is his problem. Dorian Sable receives a different outcome. He is convicted of unlawful succession, manipulation, corpse trafficking, conspiracy, and attempting to force jurisdictional accumulation. Holt pushes for permanent confinement. Pell supports it. Rowan does not intervene. Dorian asks to speak with him before sentencing. The meeting lasts 6 minutes. Dorian sits behind a reinforced glass partition. No chains, no hidden artifacts. His hands remain folded. You could hold all 9. Straight to the point. Rowan looks at him. That argument worked poorly the first several times. The gods will return. Probably. A council cannot match them. Then the council improves. Dorian's jaw tightens. You still refuse the crown? Yes. Even knowing what waits above? Rowan stands. Especially then. He leaves. Dorian remains imprisoned beneath the registry. His research is not destroyed. That would repeat the same mistake that erased the truth 1,000 years ago. Instead, every page is catalogued, copied, cross-referenced, and placed under multi-party access. No single official can remove it again. Dorian wanted restoration. He gets preservation without control. That is as close to irony as Rowan bothers arranging. Pell's punishment is less dramatic. He spends the next several years responsible for auditing every illegal corpse transfer route he helped exploit. Every ledger, every warehouse, every bribed checkpoint. The man who once used bureaucracy to hide fragments now has to use bureaucracy to recover everybody the system lost. He complains exactly once. Kale assigns him another 300 files. The complaining stops. Mayor Sven survives too. He publicly admits that he supported placing death jurisdiction under direct state control. The admission ends his career. It also prevents Holt from quietly burying the cabinet investigation. Mares testifies, names officials, opens restricted archives, then resigns. No execution, no miraculous redemption, just consequences attached to what each person actually did. The sepulture cabinet itself is dissolved, not by burning a secret headquarters. It never had one. That was the whole point. Its power lived inside mundane offices, so Holt destroys it the boring way. Permissions revoked. Dual control requirements introduced. Burial transport ledgers duplicated across departments. Ancient artifacts require 3 independent signatures. No single archivist can erase records. No single custodian can move royal remains. No single director can secretly rebuild another fragment network, including Holt. Especially Holt. He signs that restriction himself. Our necromancer makes sure of it. By the end of the month, Rowan finally receives payment for his original Grey March field assignment. 3 days of corpse recovery. Low-risk trainee rate. Absolutely insulting. He stares at the coin voucher. Mira looks over his shoulder. You fought a royal corpse, uncovered a 1,000-year conspiracy, challenged divine death administration, and created 2 functioning jurisdictions. 3 days. Yes. Low-risk rate. Yes. Rowan folds the voucher. I'm appealing. Mira smiles. Actually smiles. Tiny. Brief. Worth more than the voucher. Several days later, they stand inside the Northern District while Kale oversees replacement of an old burial wall. Children walk past the gray boundary stones without fear. Merchants have reopened nearby shops. One florist has somehow made a thriving business selling arrangements specifically approved for Grave Dominion soil. The flowers last longer there. Nobody knows why yet. Rowan refuses to investigate until someone else handles it. A revolutionary concept. Mira leans against the restored wall. Her crown severer mark remains visible. She has been offered a temple command, a registry command, and a royal appointment. She refuses all 3. Instead, she establishes an independent sentinel office beside the ossuary, not under Rowan, not under Holt, not under the temples, exactly where it belongs. Her job is simple. Watch the first jurisdiction. Watch any future ones. Cut unlawful concentration if necessary. Rowan signs the charter personally. No hesitation. Kale witnesses it. Pell files it. Holt complains about the wording. Normal life, apparently. The modern registry issues Rowan one final classification. Not S rank. Not triple S. Not some invented category pretending the system can measure him now. His certificate reads, Necromancer Forbidden Class. First jurisdiction holder. Combat rank. Non-comparable. Restriction status. Active oversight. Rowan approves. Mostly because the phrase active oversight visibly annoys Mira. She keeps a copy anyway. For the first time since the awakening ceremony, his position is clear. The world does not treat him as weak. It does not pretend he is harmless. It does not crown him either. He receives something much rarer. A defined place inside the rules he helped change. Then Kale brings him a ledger. Old. Black cover. Recovered from a sealed corridor beneath the royal ossuary. The corridor bears the symbol of the second jurisdiction. Memory. Rowan opens the ledger on a stone work table. He does not enter the corridor. Not yet. One line inside the book has been written recently. Impossible, considering the ledger has been sealed for roughly 1,000 years. Second warden status. Unconfirmed. Last registered location. Velis Archive City. Mira reads it. Where is Velis? Holt answers from behind them. Across the eastern frontier. Specific place. Existing map. Old archive city abandoned after the War of 9 Crowns. The deeper truth from the first jurisdiction now leaves a concrete question behind. If Kale survived, if the 7th warden survived, then another warden may still exist, and the second jurisdiction governs exactly the phenomenon Rowan has been using since the beginning, memory retained by the dead. He closes the ledger, does not investigate immediately. Good growth. Mostly. At the same time, hundreds of miles above Crownfall, the Divine Synod records the failed intervention, not in darkness, not through an unnamed voice. Inside the Hall of Passage, where 9 empty office seals now rotate around a central tribunal table. Orex's former seat remains vacant. One divine representative places Crownfall's status document into the record. Mortal jurisdictions, contested. No new attack is authorized. Instead, the Synod issues a narrower order. Locate remaining mortal throne nodes before the first holder does. The gods are no longer trying to erase Rowan immediately. They are moving around him. Different problem. Potentially worse. Back in the capital, Rowan adds Velis Archive City to his map, then Crownfall, then the Royal Ossuary. 3 restored or suspected nodes. 6 jurisdictions remain unresolved. He does not circle all of them. He circles only Velis, one problem at a time. Mira enters wearing her travel coat. She places 2 packed bags beside the door. Rowan looks at them. I didn't say we were leaving. You open the map. That proves nothing. You packed the burial ledger. He looks toward his desk. Fair. KL hands Rowan the second jurisdiction ledger. Pell delivers travel authorization. Holt provides exactly 0 useful objections because he knows nobody is listening. Rowan puts on his coat. No throne waits for him. No army lines the street. No crowd chants his name. Outside, the Northern District continues moving like an ordinary part of the capital. Flowers are being delivered to the ossuary. Registry clerks argue over forms. Mira checks the edge of her crown severer blade. The first warden returns to his desk, and the weakest Class F Necromancer in recorded history walks out carrying a map toward a city where the dead may remember far more than they should. The first holder of the royal ossuary does not need a crown to make the dead recognize his authority. But on the map beside Velis Archive City, someone has already marked the symbol of the second jurisdiction in fresh black ink.